Welcome to the BJJ Executive Podcast, Episode 9. I'm your host, Dave Kroll. Another busy week, and as the podcasts have started to roll out, some of the trends have started to evolve, and some of the questions have started to flow in. And so I suppose, just to kick things off this week, maybe a couple housekeeping items. Anytime you do have questions, I mean, things have come up inevitably in podcasts as people have gone through listening or just thinking for themselves, you know, what kind of tips or tricks or life hacks or whatever that they want to hear out of this. Feel free to drop me a line, follow me on Instagram at BJJ Executive, and send me a message, and I will for sure get them in. And people have already started doing that. And so, you know, one of the tips that I think that I've got for anybody, and this is, you know, any kind of advice that comes from me, obviously would have a big, massive health warning on it. But that is that you have to watch your self-imposed limitations. And it's too tempting to do that in jiu-jitsu. And you hear it all the time. I hear it constantly on the mats, and it's in the form of things like, I'm not really that athletic. Well, maybe you're not that athletic, but this isn't a destination that you're trying to get to. This is a journey in jiu-jitsu that you're on. And even the best black belts will tell you that I'm not done yet. I didn't reach the top. I've just continued the journey. I've turned the corner. So if you haven't been to the destination, if there's not a destination, then how will you know what it's supposed to look like when you get there? So don't define something beforehand. Some people say I'm not flexible, and so I don't do these types of moves. I don't do some of these inverted moves, and you close yourself off to a whole different realm of jiu-jitsu. And that kind of leads me into the topic a little bit of this week's guest. And I had fallen into some of these traps myself. And this is a really common one where, hey, look, I'm starting to get a little bit older. You hear people talking about it on the mats a lot. You'll hear people say, man, back when I was 20, back when I was 30, back when I was 40, whatever it might be. And it's really just kind of a cop-out. And I was in that, you know, game as well, I suppose. And I would tell myself, you know, look, I'm getting older. What do I want to get out of this? I want to get a good cardio workout, but there's no way that I'm ever going to be, you know, a good competitor. There's no way that I'll ever get my purple belt or my brown belt or whatnot. I've just kind of missed that window. And as I started training in this latest phase of jiu-jitsu, when I kind of got back into it and said, look, I'm going to give this a good run, I met today's guest, James Faulkner. And James and I are the same age. We're both mid-40 guys, and we were a little bit younger, obviously, when we first met. But James kind of defied that for me. And I saw a guy, and I met a guy there that had all of the same limitations that I had. We are the same size. We're the same age. We were close to the same belt level. James has always been a step ahead of me there. But I realized, like, man, there's ways to play at the high level here. James was out there competing. He was out there doing high-level competitions, high-level competition training that committed good portions of a whole work week into multi-training session days. And then I realized, like, look, I put myself in this little box here, but I didn't even know what the end should look like. And so that's kind of a good segue into this week's guest. Once again, James Faulkner, husband, father, owner of Falcon BJJ, and recently minted BJJ black belt under Rafael Formiga. James, thanks for being here, man. We've been talking about this for a bit.
Man, it's a pleasure, man. It's a big pleasure. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, man. And I mean, I've got a newfound respect for the amount of time that you spend in your truck, because obviously I got a chance to come down to your gym the other night, which was freaking awesome, man. Guys were all welcoming, and the place looks as good as it does in pictures.
Man, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's been something in the works for a while. Thought process kind of started a couple of years ago, about 2018 or so. Really didn't think it was going to pull out, and then me and the wife kind of sat down and talked about it, and it was like she's once again 100% backed it, and let's do it. And so we did.
Crazy,
so
man.
It's a journey.
Yeah, man.
You know, jiu-jitsu itself's a journey, but owning the schools, even, it's like one of those step further that the journey continues.
It's funny, man, because, like, I mean, I knew that you were doing this in the background, and I'd heard you talking to Formiga about it and whatnot, but like going back to the, you know, kind of intro there where I was looking at you, and you're like, whatever, I'm doing this. And, so I'm 40 years old, whatever. So I'm a brown belt still. You hadn't gotten your black belt. And I'm like watching all these stuff. So I'm like, dude, this guy's just like going at it, What am I worried about here? You know what I mean? But it did sort of hit reset for me where it was like, this stuff is possible, man. People are doing this, And so, dude, honestly, bro, I look up to you in that regard. And I had a blast.
Careful with that, man.
Oh, come on, man. Come on. I had a blast down there training out, man. You guys were super welcoming, and your gym is it's got a good vibe, man. It's a good vibe.
That's one of the things that we've really, really focused on. It's been a little rough start, but me and the wife kind of sat down. It's like, okay, we got to change. We want to grow the community. We don't want to isolate ourselves from the community. We want, and we've got a great gym down there that's close to us, Wise Jiu-Jitsu. I just plugged him. Dude, great guys. We train with him. Our students cross-train between each other. And that's what it's about. It's about growing the community.
I think I was training with one of those guys.
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yeah. Oh, he talked to me. Listen, for the last 2 days, man, Dave's really good.
I don't know why he thinks that, dude.
Oh, bro. You give yourself some credit, man. Give yourself some credit. You've expanded in the last year or so.
No,
it's been crazy.
Thanks to guys like you and Tristan and Tunde. I mean, like the guys that have been just ringing my bell, bro.
There's no ringing lately, man. It's just one of those things, man. The journey's definitely, you can see where your journey's kind of, it just excelled. You hit that fast forward button and it's
dude.
Here he comes.
That's the beauty though, man. I'm still like barely giving you a run, so you guys have been, you would definitely, this is one of those things like it, and this comes down to who you're training with is like, anytime I get a chance to go with you, it's a treat, man. Same with like Tristan or Tunde, cause you guys are like my size and it takes all I've got in order to give you a good round. Like I can't just take it easy. If I take it easy, you're going to get 10 steps ahead before I know it. And I remember some of the early rounds we had, like when you were really hitting it hard for competition and whatnot, I'm like, dude, this guy just kicked my ass, like straight up, So I have to give every ounce of it. And that pushes me in training, and just to keep up. And so like those are super valuable rounds for me, man. Like they've been formative, get 6 minutes through. I'm like, okay, cool. I survived. I didn't get killed today,
Those small wins.
Yeah,
like
dude.
that we all,
it is a win.
If you can,
that was the objective. Get better.
Yes. If you can, like this time he tapped me 10 times. Okay. Next time he only got me 6 times. I'm like, those are wins, maybe you didn't win the match, but it's crucial for this journey to not look at the overall picture, but to actually take and break it down into that micro point where, okay, I'm making steps. That's what matters. And let's give it the hand to Rafael, to Formiga. I mean, he's created an environment. Me and a buddy of mine, James Gonzalez, were talking this week. It's like, there's something about walking in the doors up there. It's like, okay, the mindset has to change. Yeah. You're not training at some little mom and pop place. You're training at Rafael Formiga's. I mean, it's one of those things where if you don't walk in the right mindset, it's like, okay. Yeah. Katie, bar the doors. We're fixing to go through it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. If you're gonna get it and you're gonna spar, man, you've got to give it your all. There have been times when I knew that I wouldn't be able to do that, and that wasn't the day to step on the mats. Like it just wasn't gonna work out that way. But like in terms of like little wins, man. I mean, I remember one of the little wins that I wanted out of like earlier rounds with you. I want to be able to stand up in his guard. Like that's my objective. Like when we go, I want to be able to actually stand up. Like if all I did the whole time was just stand up, get pushed back down, stand up, get pushed back down, like that was my win. You know what I mean? Like you've got to be able to kind of like microcosm, break it down. And then it might be like, I don't want him to sweep me this time when I stand up. How do you break it down?
Yeah.
Right? But dude, you guys, I can't believe you guys come up as much as you do. I mean, like that's a heck of a trip, dude. It really is.
Man, it makes it for me. It makes it easier working up on this side of town.
Yeah.
So being able to spend my lunch break and train is actually a really cool thing.
Yeah.
And then there's days, especially here lately, that work, obviously, income is important.
Yeah, dude, a little bit.
There's days that I can't make it ends, but as much as I'd like. But dude, it's
I see James coming in, and he's like, James is always happy, dude. He's always got this big infectious smile on his face, and he rolls in, and he's like, bro, I've been in traffic for 45 minutes. Like, I've got to get in that bathroom.
Man, the old man bladder kicks in.
I know, dude. He's got like, he's double fisting C4s, and he's like, I got to get in that bathroom. But then driving down to Waxahachie the other night, like, I drove down in rush hour, right? Because I wanted to get there for the 7 o'clock class and really get a good session in and whatnot. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to leave at like 5 or so. And every one of those highway interchanges, man, I'm just sitting there. So going home, it was smooth sailing, like I was saying. But yeah, man, as I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, I got a newfound respect for what these guys are putting in to get up to this school, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Dude, I've got this funny story, man. Like, man, this might have been like 6 months ago or so. You and I had like a really good round or something. Like we had like a good, it was on that day, man. The energy levels were high. It wasn't our typical, like, we're going to sit still trying to like really out tactic each other. This was going to be one that we're going to really freaking, I think even JB might have clapped after it or something. Like, dude, you guys just got after it. And so and then both of us, we just went into our next round, I think I went on a trip. I don't remember where, but I was gone for a while. And I came back, and you were standing over in the corner. And then I walked over to you. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? You go, dude, I've been thinking about that round. And I'm like, oh, no, dude. I'm like, I'm going to get killed today, dude. You just kind of looked at me, man. You're like, I've been thinking about that round.
Bro.
I'm like, uh-oh. I don't remember what the outcome was, but I'm sure I paid something.
You were firing on all cylinders that day. I remember
like I said,
that role.
I have to. If I'm going to keep up with you, bro, I have to. And that's what I like about it. Having training partners that force you into that corner. It makes you ready for everything else. It gives you confidence that jiu-jitsu works. And then, when you get into the, competition mats, it's like, dude, what are you going to see? So somebody might have a better day than you have, but it didn't take you by surprise, right?
No, exactly. Yeah. Especially up there, you get a look of everything. There's not anything at Highland Village on a noon class that you're not going to see.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. So, and like you said, man, I mean, big shout out to Formiga on that. I mean, he's created this environment. We were talking last night. I went for a bit last night. I trained in the advanced class, did a couple of really good rounds. And then I stuck around and watched the fundamentals class for a bit, because he was working some stuff that I wanted to see. And we were talking, like, while some of those guys were sparring. And dude, I mean, like, he was talking about some of the black belts that are coming today. He's got, I don't know who they are, but there's a couple high level guys. I'm sure we'll see them, when we go in there and roll today. Are you rolling today?
I'm trying to.
You a
roll
solid
today.
maybe?
I've got my bag, and I'm definitely going.
I'm going no matter what. Yeah,
the performance may not be where it needs to be today. I've been suffering some injuries, so
yeah, you have.
I'm getting lucky, getting a full training session in once a week right now. It's just so much pain, dude.
You've got. Having been kind of spending a lot more time with folks that have opened gyms like yourself, Anthony. You guys are still working. You have jobs. You have, you're on the mats every single night. Like, I mean, I'm spoiled right now, like I go and train, I can totally taper myself. And I mean, if I'm not feeling it, I can always let you know. Like, I think you asked me the other night, like, you feeling all right? So that influence too, you're going to give me to train with. And I mean, you're running the place, bro. You don't probably have that luxury all the time, man. If somebody, you had this, dude, that big guy, holy cow, bro.
Blake is a beast.
I shook his hand, and I'm like, my whole torso moved up and down. And I'm like, is he a football player?
So he was a D1 tackle for Tarleton, actually. And
that explains a lot.
He's in the middle of prepping right now for the...
Is it for the combine?
For the combine.
I heard him talking about that.
He's working his butt off, man. He's training in Frisco right now with a lineman coach.
That is crazy. He doesn't need jiu-jitsu. What's he doing?
No, he doesn't. He defines a lot of things. He's like kind of like our buddy Isaac, man. You know. Yeah. But when you see 340 pounds do a cartwheel, it's like
he does a cart.
Oh yes, he will definitely do the cartwheel.
Man,
it's
dude,
like freaky.
That's not good.
No,
that's not good. Watch
he's
out,
got
ultra
bear claws.
division, dude.
Listen,
white belt ultra. I'm gonna guess he's gonna be in the adult division too.
So
white belt ultra adults. You are screwed.
I got to tell this story, and I shoot myself in the foot for it because, like you said, newly black belt, and this guy's a white belt, been training for like 2 months. Okay. So I teach him the X choke from mount.
Okay.
Really easy.
Standard cross collar choke.
Cross collar choke. I kind of fell asleep in one of our rolls with him the other day. It was one of those things like, okay, I wasn't really like in the mood to just shift gears. And he got to mount, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. 340 pounds.
This ain't good.
Like even in my high school days, could I push 340 pounds off my chest?
Yeah.
And now
dead weight.
Yes, this is just
A wet mattress.
Yes. And all of a sudden, I feel the bear claws. They set into the lapels. I'm like, oh, he's not. This is like a move of the day. I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and let him do this. And I grabbed a hold of him, and with everything I had, I bumped my hips and went to roll. And the next thing I know, I'm seeing stars. I'm like, oh, I'm tapping.
That's
buddy, you're not. And I told him, and we clapped hands, and I politely
That's awesome.
shifted my gears that like second after the round. I was like, you're not getting back on top of me, Bubba.
He knows it's coming, though, dude.
Oh yeah, he knew it. He's like, he still talks about it. He's like, man, I got you that one time, and he's like, yeah, I got to pay for it. I'm like, yes, you did, because you're not going to get that again.
I know,
take that one opportunity, but I think it's a confidence builder to an extent for these new guys. I mean,
this stuff works.
It does work. I mean, yes, he's 340 pounds. He's 6'5", and just a beast of a man. I mean, he defies a lot of things that shouldn't be able to happen.
There's not many humans that are like that. You know, like athletic 340 pounds, man. That's a whole different level, man. Whole different level.
And so if I don't care what level you are, you slow down at all with somebody like that, and it's like, oh. Yeah, I messed up,
dude. For me, like if I roll with somebody like that, the fact that I can like maintain them in guard or something like that, or protect myself and keep the distance that I need, like to me that is jiu-jitsu, dude. Like
100%.
I'm not looking to keep him 2 points, 3 points. Like, I don't care. I want jiu-jitsu to work the way it's supposed to, and keep this freaking human off of me. Like, you know what I mean? Like that is a huge win right there. And so for the blue belts and whatnot that are coming up in your gym, have somebody like that in there. I'm sure it's intimidating, because you're gonna have to go with a guy that's could literally like squash your head like a beer can.
Up to the point that he joined, probably the biggest guy was maybe 260, 270.
Yeah.
And so guys were complaining about that. They don't complain about the 260, 270 anymore.
Yeah.
They know that it could be worse. They could have Blake sitting on top of them and not able to do anything. So it's crazy. And listen,
it'll make people a lot better.
It's guys like that
having somebody like that.
Oh, yes. And it's guys like that made me cut out of the ultra heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, because you get a big guy like that, it's just a beast, and it's like, I'm too old for this.
Yeah, man, that would be deep waters for me too. It's one thing to go against a guy that just happens to weigh a lot, and knows jiu-jitsu, but it's another thing to go against somebody who's at the NFL combine, you know what I mean? And and all of the athleticism that needs to go along with that, elite athleticism. I mean, they're literally picking Volkswagens up and stuff and throwing them around. I mean, like that's a whole different ballgame.
Oh, he single-handed shot put me across the room the other night, and I don't know that I've ever been lifted like that before. I'm like, okay,
that's crazy, man. That's crazy. Isaac did a Turkish get up on me once. Yeah. I was in side control, and Isaac just pushed me off of him. He sat his torso up, and then he stood up. I'm like, dude, I'm not a small guy. I mean, this is an audio podcast, but I mean, I'm super heavy, So, and I'm like,
there's a reason I compared Blake to Isaac.
I just got Turkish
a little
get
bit
up.
lighter. Yeah,
like those are for kettlebells, dude, not human beings, bro. This isn't.
No, for sure.
Craziness, man, craziness. But anyway, seriously, bro, it was a lot of fun, man. I every time I get a chance to go in there, because I also got to see you in a different light. And I saw you lit up, man, just with the kids class and whatnot, interacting with the kids. You guys had a good, probably foursome, I think, going on, getting ready for competition training, I'm guessing.
Wednesdays are a little bit lighter for me on it's just naturally, I think it's through the 10 years that I've trained, Wednesdays have always been kind of light, but it was a light night. But yeah, I had 2 or 3 of my I have like 6 main kids that are on my competition team, and they are killing it right now.
Yeah,
I'm really stoked. But
I see the accolades, man. It seems like every time I turn around, you guys are throwing medals up and stuff like that. You had a few actual team wins that are hanging in the gym now.
Super stoked. Now I'm going to say those team wins are a 5-5 because we do compete with all the other 5-5 teams, and the way Formiga does it is whoever puts the most in the comp or most points towards the team, that's who gets to take the trophy home.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
It gives everybody the
Gives
opportunity.
an incentive. You know, you're part of the team, but there's some upside if you know for contributors.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I love that aspect of it. But the kids comp teams, man, that's probably where my heart is overall. Like, I love jiu-jitsu, but the kids comp team that's where most of my energy probably goes. That's awesome, man. So
that was a side of you I'd never seen, man. Because, like, look, let's say we train at noon today. There's probably gonna be 15 black belts there. You know? Yeah. And I mean, you're going to be a sponge. You're absorbing knowledge, man. And that's the James that I've known, since I've known you, is the guy that's there asking questions, learning technique, drilling with the rest of us, get hard rounds in. And I walked in the other night, dude, you're in charge, bro. You're the one that's spreading the knowledge and actively coaching and managing and leading and whatnot. It was really cool to see.
Yeah, no.
I got a good 45-minute preview of sitting over there in the practice mats and whatnot. So it was cool, man. Cool little vibe.
Appreciate it.
You want to get into it a little bit?
Let's go, man. Let's go.
So, I mean, obviously I know a little bit about your background, but growing up here locally, I guess, you're a Dallas boy?
I grew up just south of Dallas, Red Oak. At the time, man, it was like one road down the middle of it.
There's so many places like that around here.
So many.
Red Oak, Texas?
Yeah.
Was it considered Dallas proper? Or was
no, it's outside. It's Ellis County, so we're
okay.
outside. We're just south of Dallas proper. So
okay,
we're a small town, man.
It was a small town?
It was a small town.
Anymore.
No, it's not.
I drove through that the other night. I was like, it just sounds familiar. It's where James said he's from, and it didn't feel like it was anything different than Dallas, dude. It was Cowboys country. It was, the big buildings in sight.
No, it's
crazy.
Definitely was a small town vibe. Growing up there, it was. Everybody made the team. I mean, it was just one of those places, like, you didn't really have to try out for anything. So, you showed up for practice, you were on the team. Mm-hmm. So, I grew up playing a little bit of soccer and young, but when I got into high school, it was all about the football.
Yeah, man, it's Texas, dude.
All about the football.
It's Texas. I can't even believe they gave you a soccer ball in Red Oak, man. Like, I mean, like, it's one thing if it's in Dallas or something, You start getting into some of these outskirts cities, I mean, that still impresses me to this day when I go through and I see, like, a place like Red Oak, for example, or fill in the blank, Cut and Shoot, Texas, or Conroe or whatnot, that has, like, stadiums, not a set of bleachers. I'm talking like freaking full scale, like, bond issuance at the city level type of stadium that
it is a thing,
support the football team, man. It is a thing. There's TV shows and movies about it for a reason.
Yes.
Friday Night Lights in Texas are the real deal.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. Yeah, we didn't have wrestling. We didn't have any of that growing up. It was football, track, and powerlifting, man. That was it, man. And
you had powerlifting?
Powerlifting. I did powerlifting for Really? It was available for us. I didn't really get into it till probably my junior year.
Okay. That's cool.
It was, powerlifting was cool.
Like an organized sport.
Organized sport.
No kidding. That's awesome.
It's big too.
I mean, conveniently, it feeds right into the football team.
Well,
right?
No, exactly. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons it was brought in was the benefits for football. Was big deal. So.
Heck yeah, dude. Dude, the money in football is ridiculous. Like, we were talking a little bit earlier, and like I was saying, I'm involved in the wrestling club in my son's high school, or the booster club anyway. And I mean, the main purpose is to raise money and, help grow the program from the insides. Watching what the wrestling program gets compared to the football team, holy cow, dude. There is a small African economy around that football in terms of, like, advertisements and whatnot.
Oh, yes.
I mean, seriously, dude, the amount of money that flows through there. I don't know the numbers. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It just surprised me.
Wrestling is, I've lived in Texas all my life.
Multiple zeros.
And and Texas is one of those places where wrestling didn't exist 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it just didn't.
Yeah,
I mean,
in Texas.
It's one of those things where I say 15, like maybe 20 years ago. But, I can't remember when it came in, but it just didn't. It just wasn't there.
Yeah.
It's slowly come from the north, and it just kind of come in. And, and I think it's changed a lot of things just in the jiu-jitsu community.
Yeah.
On that aspect, you take a wrestler and drop it into a jiu-jitsu class, and it's like, whew.
Yeah.
Yeah, a whole different ball game.
That works both ways, man. You take a jiu-jitsu guy and you drop him into the wrestling team, and he's at least going to know some grappling.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
We had a kid from my son's wrestling team that popped in last night and trained. Wrestling season just ended, just happened to be that time. And his parents were asking like, what can he do in the off season? And I'm like, get him to train jiu-jitsu. I mean, if he doesn't want to do like a wrestling club or something, but he wants to stay involved, he wants to keep in somewhat level of wrestling shape, jiu-jitsu's got all that stuff available. And he came in, I watched him last night. He's a white belt. He's 15, 16, something like that. Dude, he kept up, man, did fine. He trained the advanced class, and, Formiga had to put him with people that would keep him under control, because he's jumping around like a wrestler, man.
No, for sure. And it's funny you brought that up, because that's how I got into jiu-jitsu. Was my son was doing wrestling his senior year, and all of a sudden he kind of stopped. I'm one of those that my son was actually born between my sophomore and junior year, so
of high school.
Dude. So grew up really fast.
That's a quick learning curve, man.
It's a big quick learning curve, and I'm still trying to learn the whole parent thing. But
I mean, you're beyond that too. I mean,
we're borderline. The chickens are leaving the coop. I've got my youngest one is a senior this year, and she's graduating going to Tarleton.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. We've got a lot in common in that regard, man.
It's a different world out there with no kids.
Yeah.
And I say no kids. My daughter works all the time, so it's like me and my wife now. So
you guys are starting to feel what that's
we get small little stints of, has anybody talked to the youngest one lately?
Dude, same here, man. Same here.
So it's crazy, but my son. So I was young when I had him, so it makes me
16.
So he was born. He was actually born 1 month after I turned 17.
Wow.
Crazy. And I was 1 year behind in school. Man, it was one of those things where he was in his senior year, and he decided that he was done, and he wanted to do something else.
Yeah.
And so he found a local gym and started training, and he'd come home one day, and I'd been playing some volleyball a little bit and maybe some outdoor soccer and stuff, but he's like, Dad, you got to come try this. I'm like, no, I'm not rolling around with a bunch of sweaty dudes, bro.
So he's a high school wrestler, and then he finds his way into
jiu-jitsu. And
did he live with you?
Yeah. So he moved in with me when he was 15.
Okay, cool.
15. He moved in with us. And,
I mean, presumably you had to find a way to grow up pretty quick.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a steep curve. I mean, I had my son when I was 21, and like I still look back and I'm like, damn, dude, that was
young.
I was young, yeah. So I mean, 17, man. Those are some big formative years for sure.
Very, and I was blessed meeting my wife. I met her before I was out of high school, but she was a waitress at El Chico, and we're kind of jumping, but she was a waitress at El Chico, and I met her hanging out up there every day. That
sounds like a Red Oak thing.
It's El Chico, right? And, at that time, it's like you weren't quite aged, but you had friends that were serving at the bar. It's like, okay, here we go.
Man, there's somebody in El Chico right now that's cringing, dude. They're like, I gotta.
Yeah. So, but I met my wife, and one of our first dates was actually my son's second birthday.
Wow, that's crazy.
She took on.
That must have been an attritter, in terms of like, meeting anybody. Like, you've got to eventually kind of pierce that veil. Like, okay, well, there's this.
Yeah.
I mean, although they might have even known it, given how small of an area it was.
Oh yeah, everybody knew I had a kid at that point. So, but yeah, and it was one of those things where she open-heartedly
That's awesome,
took him in, and she's been there every step of the way since he was 2.
That's so cool.
We had split custody between me and my, not even ex, because I mean we were actually
kids.
we were kids, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to say ex, but me and his mom, we'd never after he was born was never together again. So she's been there every step of the way, and we had split custody and that kind of thing. So he was always a part of everything we did. It was one of those things when I found out it was a ball buster.
I'm sure,
but
man.
It was one of those things like, okay, let's man up. We're gonna take care of business. And I've
Did
been
you have
there.
people around you pushing you for that, or was it something that was just ingrained in you?
It was something that was ingrained with me. My parents was always try to do the right thing.
I mean, so many people don't.
And even owning a gym now, you see some of those situations.
I'm sure.
With kids coming in, and it's like your heart goes out. It's like, man, where's the dad at?
Yeah, you might be the male
Man,
that they get to, be around.
So it's kind of crazy, and so, but man, my wife open-heartedly, man, she took him right in. And
that's amazing.
It's.
Is she your age?
Yes, man. Yeah, okay. Yeah. We're like 6 months apart.
Okay, cool.
So,
cool. So she's young too.
So
man.
yeah,
that's a big commitment right there.
Oh yeah, and listen, she did it perfectly. Like my wife's a saint.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest, she's a saint.
Yeah, I got that impression, man.
She can be rough around the edges, but she's a saint. Like
she seemed like she would throw some heavy elbows.
Listen, when
she was all pissed off because she couldn't triangle me the other night. I'm like, oh my god. This lady's gonna kill me if I let her, dude.
Man, that's a whole other story.
I can sense the competitive edge.
Oh yeah,
I can sense the competitive edge.
She's definitely competitive.
And
man.
seriously, if I didn't put a little resistance on it, then I was about to get choked out. So
man, she's found that. She's found that triangle, man.
I can feel it.
She's found that triangle.
I can feel it. It felt a lot like jets. Like very athletic. Like pushing up into you. And when I was like, dang, I'm gonna have to like do a little posture here.
She trains like 7 days a week now.
Really?
Bro. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
How long has she been training? I know we're totally off topic.
Yeah, 6 months, man.
6 months,
bro.
Oh, dude.
6
she compete?
Months. Yes.
Okay.
She has competed.
She's signed up for Dallas. I think.
She is signed up for Dallas. She's had 3 competitions. The first one, she took second to one of her training partners.
Okay, that's tough.
So, and they were, if you were to watch the video, they were training partners. And
okay, that's cool.
I think they were actually having a conversation while they were rolling. To be honest with you, because they're that tight.
That's an awkward training partner. So man. Luckily, I've never been in that spot.
No, I haven't either. So
yeah.
But then she turned around and went JJ World, and took gold at JJ World, and then she turned around and did AGF again, took gold at AGF again. I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, keep it. I can see it. I'm not surprised at all, man.
It's been a lot of conversation of her doing IBJJF, and she finally made a decision. I don't ever want her to feel like I force her to do anything.
Yeah,
but it's really awesome because it's been 10 years since I've been a white belt, so there's a team thing that happens with the vibe at the gym where every time somebody comes in right now with her being a white belt, they're down there beside her, so she's able to kind of give a comfort level and do things. But training 6 days, 7 days a week,
that's a heavy commitment. For 6 months of 6 and 7 days a week, man. I mean, that's like basically blue belt,
Well, exactly. She's getting there. Like, man, she's getting there quick. Yeah. And but it's been really awesome to finally share the mats. And like she brings that. Where I'm the hard, she brings the soft.
Yeah, you guys got a good vibe.
So
you could back and forth,
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
If you can't handle it and go talk to James about it, well, you can go talk to Tabitha and she'll listen to you. She'll hear you.
There's kids that absolutely, like, she'll get on the mat with the kids and she'll work with them. Like, she'll see one of the girls that's, man, just mentally they're having a rough time.
Yeah.
And she sees that, and next thing you know, she got her gi on, she got her belt on, she's walking over, she's grabbing that kid, and she's doing a one-on-one while I'm dealing with the class. She's doing a one-on-one trying to help build that confidence.
Yeah.
And the kids love her for that. There's some kids that they probably don't care. They could care less about me being on the mat. They'd much rather have her.
Yeah.
Because she brings a softness to it, especially with the girls.
It's the way it is in any sport, man, and it's the way for adults too. I mean, like, you could have the best teacher in the whole world, man, but if you can't pick up what they're putting down, I mean, I've said it before, right? Yep. They're not your teacher.
No.
Like you're just, I mean, they might be your supervisor for the hour and keeping you on track, but like that ain't going to be the best spot for you. So like if you find a good connection and the fact that you guys have, kind of very different personalities on the mats anyway, dude, it's a good A and B, So that's awesome.
It's chiming, man. But yeah,
So that goes back to, I guess, when you guys were probably 20 years old or so.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, I actually met my first adult, what I consider my adult boss, was actually met him in the same place I met my wife.
Yeah.
Randy King, man, and they were regulars on Friday nights, man, after they get off work. The whole group, these group of guys and their wives would show up and drink and eat and have a good time. And they always sat in my wife's section. Mm-hmm. And, man, they got to talking one day, and she's like, yeah, my boyfriend's looking for a job. He's looking at, I think it was like doing, electronics or something. And this guy that I didn't know, he's like, really? He's like, yeah. He says, why don't you just you and your boyfriend at the time come hang out with us? We're having a company party. Just come hang out with us. She's like, are you sure your boss is okay with that? We had no clue who this guy was. Mm-hmm. And so we went to this company party. We drank it up. We danced. We ate. And it was basically my interview.
Oh, really? He wants to see if you're a fit, like a personal fit.
Yeah. So he wanted
cool.
to see how I chimed in with everybody. And over the next couple of days, we talked a little bit. Come to find out, he was the vice president of the company.
Okay.
He ran the North Dallas office.
What were you guys doing? Is this electrician type stuff?
So it was. So yeah. So he was an electrical contractor, but they were in the business of building schools.
Okay.
And it was like
pretty healthy business in Texas.
Oh yeah, bro. 25 years at it right now.
Yeah.
Just on a
it
different
ain't gonna
aspect.
slow down either.
No,
Man. Just look around.
No, it's crazy. But he was like, man, just come work, man. I spent 17 years with him.
Really? Well, how old were you when you started?
I was 19 when I started
19.
with him. 19.
Wow.
I spent 17 years with him, man. And
all off a conversation at a diner.
That's exactly right.
That's crazy.
He's one of the greatest men I've ever met.
Yeah.
Like, if there was ever a mentor out there that I don't want to use the word idolize, but
emulate for sure.
Emulate, man. Because he was just that guy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Like,
what's he doing now?
He's actually retired.
Retired.
They're actually the company's actually celebrating their. Man, it might be their 80th birthday, maybe, I think. Mm-hmm. And the new vice president called me and was like, hey, we're having everybody come back, having this big shindig. I'm like, heck yeah, let's go, man. I'd love to see all y'all again. My brother actually still works for him. I got my brother into it. But man, he always provided. It was one of those things, one of those companies that they didn't have any work that week. Okay. Y'all show up at my house and trim trees, or y'all show up at my house, we're putting irrigation in. We got if we were willing to work, we were getting paid.
Yeah.
I didn't ever go without a paycheck.
That's cool.
And in the early days, there were some moments that was like, oh, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? And they took care of us.
Yeah.
Man. They took care of me, my family, always. And when we were dating, it's funny because we got to know him so well that he would go him and his family would go out of town, and he'd call up me and at the time my girlfriend, hey, welcome, house sit. I'm like, yeah, sure. We're all about it. Walk in, he had steaks sitting in the fridge for us to cook, had margaritas pre-mixed. It was like, okay, this is kind of weird, but this is cool.
Got to live in a different life. Yeah, like a body double, so to speak.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, the dude probably realizes how hard it is to find, like compatible talent, I mean, and it really is, and so, I mean, it sounds like he saw something in you in the early days that he was willing to invest in, and it's crazy to me that I just don't see that as much anymore. No. Where it's just, things turn into a churn. There might be some generational elements to it as well, but there's an element of laziness on the mentor side where they're just not willing to go out there and put the energy into it.
There's no dedication. There's no, like, people chase the dollar these days, and they don't realize that, man.
There's pros and cons, There's pros and cons to it, There's a right way to deal with that type of stuff too. I mean, like nowadays, look, when you and I were growing up, we were probably on the dawn or the sunset, I suppose, of like the pension era, like where people, like this concept of American lifetime employment. Dude, my grandparents both, kind of came down, same company, that was sort of the expectation. Small town Texas, small town Oklahoma, and that's what they did after the war, and then that is not how it works in like the world that I live in right now, man. You kind of got to go out there and they'll chop you up in a heartbeat, and so it's cool that stuff is still out there, man, and you were able to find somebody that was able to kind of
for sure
fill that in.
And it wasn't easy work. It was 6-7 days construction. If you didn't work, you didn't get paid.
Yeah, so, that's a good incentive, man.
Yeah, so it's like you showed up to work, and man, he gave me so many free passes. Like, dude, I could tell us we go down some rabbit holes on fights on job sites, and some crazy things that transpired pre BJJ. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, he gave me plenty of chances, and I gave him plenty of opportunities that he could have just let me go. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
we can't do this anymore. But man, he was always there, just every step of the way
That's
for me
cool.
and my family. So
I had a guy
cool.
that told me like the rules of engagement were pretty simple. Like, look, I will put you as close to the fire as you say you want, and you're gonna feel the heat, and that's cool. I will not let you get burned, but if you ever complain about the temperature, you're out.
Yeah.
Those were the rules of engagement.
That is great.
That is. And so like, I needed to trust that, look, I'm not going to get burned here, you know, but like if I did my, the typical lazy, like, this isn't what you said, or whatnot, like, there's a two-way street, so that's cool. That's cool. And I guess that allows, somebody like the Randys of the world to put up with a little orneriness on the Johnson or something, James had a temper tantrum. I mean, this is probably 20-year-old and 30-year-old.
Yeah,
James, I can only imagine.
Pre-BJJ, man,
I've got the kinder, gentler version.
Way tempered, man. Way tempered, bro. Yeah,
I don't know, dude. Remember that story I told you at the beginning? I've been thinking about that roll. That was the calm before the storm, dude.
Oh, man.
Oh, dude, I'm sure I suffocated that day.
Yeah, no, but, and me and the wife, we ended up having 2 more girls.
Yeah.
My oldest daughter will be 21 this year, and my youngest turns 18 in April. So,
cool, man. Our kids are similar in age then.
Yeah, so it's been a ride, man. The jiu-jitsu journey started with my son, kind of back to that loop.
This is wrestling and
when he
So was he early days wrestling? I mean,
yeah.
Was he at Red Oak as well?
No, so he went to Red Oak till he was 15.
Okay.
We moved to Midlothian.
Okay, cool. So just south of the DFW Metroplex.
Me and my wife have been in Midlothian since my wife actually grew up in Midlothian.
Is that where you're at right now?
So that's where we're at now.
Okay. That explains a lot then, because there's no one around some of the people that you're around and whatnot.
Yeah. So they, we pretty much always been in Midlothian.
So he wrestled.
So he wrestled in Midlothian, and his senior year he quit, or not quit. Season stopped, and he wasn't going to go any further. He loved the sport, but he just wasn't built to go to that next level.
Yeah. Like 98% of the wrestlers.
Population.
Yeah,
right.
seriously.
Yeah. Same thing with football.
Yeah,
right?
It's going to end.
Yeah, it's going to end. Your high school is your high school, and you're done.
I know, man. We've just gone through that, man. Season ended, senior year, and it's the end of the rainbow, man.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of bittersweet.
Dude, it's straight up sad, man. Yeah. May or may not have shed a couple tears, dude. It states.
No, for sure.
That last, because, dude, you go on to the bigger levels of competition, your last match is going to be a loss.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Unless you're the state champion.
No, exactly.
And so that last match happens, dude. May or may not have a little tear, dude. I'm not going to say I didn't.
Yes, for sure. And up to that point, I really hadn't done anything. I wasn't doing anything. I was working all the time. Mm-hmm. Like I said, a little bit of volleyball maybe and some soccer, but he's like, and I'm like, I told him, like, man, I am not getting out there on the mat with a bunch of sweaty dudes and rolling. It's just not going to happen. Had he gone to a proper jiu-jitsu school? Or somebody popped up? So we had it. So the guy opened a year prior to us starting. The guy's named Randy Clayton.
Okay.
Opened up the gym, and man, my wife pretty much kicked me out the door and said, "You're going with your son." Mm-hmm. I'm like, seriously. She's like, you need to find something in common. You need to do this.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I mean, it's not much more intimate than rolling together.
Right.
Dude.
Yeah. No.
Talk about get to know one another in a different way.
Yeah. In my mind, it's like, man, this is father-son thing. This is cool, but it's like, this could be catch-22.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Like, how much do we want to know
each other?
Yeah. Little did you know, dude. You're going deep in the pain cave.
But yeah, and so I went to the class, and I showed up a little bit early. Like, you go somewhere new, you always get there a little early.
Are you just thinking this is like the 8? I mean, everybody's kind of got the night rolling around with a bunch of dudes.
Yeah,
yeah. That's so unappealing to me.
Yes.
I don't want anybody touching me. I don't.
Listen, I'm 34 at the time.
Yeah.
I've had my shoulder, actually, neither one of my hands raised above my head.
I've seen the abnormal anatomy that you've got hanging off of your freaking body, dude.
Yeah, so it's like, I'm thinking, man,
I'm sure powerlifting had a little to do with it.
My baby brother had a little bit to do with that one.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that was a mid-afternoon. Mom and Dad aren't home, and we go at it.
Oh, jeez, man.
It's just one of those things that happen. So, like I said, tempers, man. It runs in the family.
Dude, not to go off too far off course. The two brothers that Dylan and Tanner Dude, those two guys, have you ever gotten to know them? They are freaking comedians, man.
Yes.
And you want to talk about like abusing one another? At Austin, we had a bunch of, and I'll come off of this one really quick, but like they were telling me stories about just beating the crap out of one another. I was sitting there like rolling around on the floor laughing. I was like stitching my side, you know? So I can only imagine like having the younger brother, you know, doing a little experiment on you, trying to.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, it was not a good day. Not a good day. I've paid for the rest of my life.
Anyway, I guess we don't need to get too far into it.
But
so you hit the mats for the first time.
So I hit the mats for the first time, and I showed up early. And
this is Randy who?
Randy Clayton.
Randy
and
Clayton,
at the time,
okay.
it was Champion Jiu-Jitsu. He was under Machado, which was, well, he was under Young, who was under Machado.
Okay.
Young out of Mansfield. And
isn't that cool how Machado has put out all of these, like what that's done to the DFW area?
Dude, without Machado, I don't know that we may not be here talking.
We've talked about JB in almost every podcast. JB is a product of Carlos Machado back in the day. I mean, you know, kind of a different version of him. And then like there's all of these other branches of that. And I mean, Formica came up from Brazil, but back then, man, I mean, like
Machado was it, right?
Yeah, and now look what he's produced, man. I mean, Midlothian. What the hell, dude? I mean, seriously?
No, he does kind of my thought, you know. And looking back, it's even more so. I was like, I really can't believe. Like when we get a little bit further, some of the names that come into Midlothian, it's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, as I kind of, you know, thought that through as well. I'm like, dude, this is like incredibly unusual, you know, like it shouldn't be that way.
No,
you know, in the amount of time that it's evolved like that, it's I mean, it's just amazing.
It's crazy.
And
but I did the first class, and I showed up a little early, and the kids are finishing up, and at the end of the class, Randy gets everybody huddled up, and they say a little prayer at the end. I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool, kind of like that. That's something new. You don't see that too much anymore.
Yeah.
And so I did class, and man, the crazy thing is I did the first class, and I didn't miss a class for 6 months.
That's nuts. So you just got hooked?
Yes.
What were the classes like?
Man, so Randy was a purple belt at the time. And
that's so impressive to me, man. That is so impressive to me that somebody can get out there. I mean, like, look, I'm so thankful for the instruction that I've got and having the exposure to the, but like for somebody to be able to get out there and gather enough knowledge and have the courage to go out there and teach a class as a purple belt, like it just, I'm, you know, that's super impressive.
Man, I'll be honest, you know, when we're talking about mentors and guys that I've looked up to, and Randy's one of those, and I would not be here today doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for him. Yeah. He was a massive influence, and over the years became a very good friend. But the classes were, you know what, they were small. We lasted an hour. It was like we did a little bit of stretching, and we did a little bit of technique, and we rolled. I mean, that was pretty much it. And most of the class was high school kids.
Standard operating procedure for
you know, and most of the class was high school kids. And I'll never forget that there was this Chris Jacinto was the guy's name, and he was a white belt and been training for a little bit. Man, he'd get on top of me and just put his chest in the middle of my face and just suffocate me. I'm tapping. I'm like, God, I feel like I'm drowning. You know, what is going on, man? What is going on? And dude, he did that for like the first 6 months. It was like he tortured me every day. And I'm thinking, I'm 34. I'm this 34-year-old guy, and this 18-year-old kid is whooping up on me. And we're close to the same size. I'm pretty heavy at the time. I think I walked in probably weighing about 255, 260 at the time.
Dude, so, I'm sure there were some people that were like, you know, same conversation you and I were having earlier, man. You know,
like, but I was like getting just destroyed. Yeah, you know, in the first 6 months, man, it's kind of standard procedure. It's kind of
you're going to go through some deep water.
You got to earn your stripes,
for
right?
Sure.
So
for sure, if you want to get to the next level, you're going to have to go through that suffering, man.
So. You know, we went on, and there was a couple of guys that Jacob Franco joined about the same time. He's another really, really good friend. We're all pretty tight. We've kind of been with Randy from the beginning, and we just went at it, and I didn't miss a lot of classes. You know, remember at this time I've got a wife, I've got kids.
Yeah, you're still hustling, dude.
I'm
hustling. Like you're building your career.
I'm trying to do a lot of things, and I'm one of those that I have a very addictive personality. When I start something, it's like, okay, I'm all in. And so we're hammering away, and this gentleman comes in. We call him Uncle Steve, and he brings Robert DeFranco, who is actually under Octavio, out of Octagon.
Okay. His name's come up a few times.
And so Robert comes in, and Randy and them hit it off wonderfully. We all loved Robert, and we next thing we know, we're dropping the Machado, and we're going with Del Franco. I ended up earning my blue belt, and I believe Randy earned his brown belt. And then the guy that was with me, kind of coming up in the ranks, earned his blue belt too, under Del Franco.
Okay.
So we trained. This is a couple of years into it now.
Were you guys some of the original, Midlothian blue belts? I guess.
I think we were from the
first generation.
Of blue belts at the time. It was champion. So when we changed to Guardian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay. That's interesting to see. I can see it coming out of your gym too. I mean, like, you've been up and running long enough. Now you got guys that are going to start.
I've got some that probably here in the next 6 months we're going to start.
That's cool.
Changing some. So
it's fun to watch that evolution.
Yeah, it's really cool being the one doing it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can only imagine, man. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Really lit a fire with me, man. Watching you do that the other night, it was super cool, dude. Seriously, we'll talk about it more offline because it's interesting.
But yeah, so we kind of did the Del Franco thing for a little bit, and all of a sudden we're training, and Randy's like, "Hey, I got Johnny Hendricks coming in." We're like,
What year is this?
This would be
14, 13?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Something like that?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm just kind of doing the math.
It'd be 15. No, it'd be
forwards.
14, probably 13, 14.
Okay.
He's somewhere in there.
Big name, man.
Big name at the time,
yeah,
right? I think he had just beat Pierre.
Oh, okay. Damn.
So big name at the moment.
Yeah,
really big name at the moment. They bring him in, they hit it off, and...
Is he a Dallas guy? I mean,
he lives in Midlothian, bro.
He lives in Johnny Hendricks does?
So the crazy thing is at the time, Randy's wife was a elementary teacher, and Johnny Hendricks' kid ends up in her class.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's like,
Small
of course,
world,
of course,
man.
Randy finds out, and it's like, oh yeah.
Let's start connecting the dots.
Yeah, we're gonna connect the dots.
Talk about level up in the school. Man.
Yeah, because again, we're in small town Midlothian. I mean, there's no big names. There's not half the town doesn't even know Jiu-Jitsu exists.
The other half had your mindset, like, I ain't doing that.
Yeah. So we bring Johnny in, and we made a couple of building transitions because we're starting to grow, and Johnny comes in, and man, that's where everything just changes for everybody. In the aspect of the name of Johnny, we didn't earn a whole lot of students having Johnny in. Johnny's kind of a different character.
Is he?
Yeah, he's a different character, but Randy's still plugging away, man. He's still pushing the classes.
Was Johnny training with you guys?
John, yes, he would get on the mats.
Dang,
Listen, the only guy I know that would walk in with a spit bottle, put the spit bottle down, keep the spit in, and roll.
Really?
Like you don't get much more countrified than
no,
that, right?
you don't,
Yeah,
dude. I mean, I can only
dude,
imagine what the next level would be.
He would just demolish all of us. I mean, and it's not that he had this wide range of things, but man, he had that very select tools that he stuck to with everything he did. He did ABC. And tell you something, there wasn't no stopping the ABC.
Yeah, you better. I guess your strategy is how do you deal with the ABC?
Yeah. Ultimately.
What a good example, man.
Yeah, so it paid off big time. And next thing we know, Randy's ordering some shirts from Gameness and this guy named Manny Diaz. I don't know, at the time we didn't know who he was. Mm-hmm. He's like, man, I want to bring the shipment down. I want to meet Johnny. He's like, okay. He's like, so Manny Diaz comes in. He ends up bringing his gi. He ends up rolling with us and stuff. We all hit it off of Manny. The crazy thing with this guy is he was a professional golf coach. And at some point, he decided to do jiu-jitsu and got his black belt in like 6 years, 7 years.
Okay,
like,
so he was in the game hard then.
Yeah, real hard.
Yeah.
Like,
talk about addictive personality.
Yes, like he jumped in and I'm not sure.
Quick turn.
I'm not sure who he had his black belt under, but he had the connections, and that's where things even took another turn. And it was like
Manny did. Manny had the connections.
Manny had the connections, and Manny's like, he calls up Tanner Rice and brings Tanner Rice in for a seminar at Midlothian. Then he brings Kit Dale in for a seminar at Midlothian.
What was Kit Dale doing in Midlothian?
Bro,
from Australia.
Exactly, man. I mean,
dang. That's
what is
crazy.
going on here? We're all like, at the time, it's like, I'm one of those guys that...
Dude, that is unbelievable.
I'm one of those guys that I want to be on the mat. I don't want to be watching TV. I don't want to be looking on YouTube. So I don't know any of these guys.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man.
Jiu-jitsu up to this point, it's been a hobby that I'm doing.
That way. I always like, I'm starstruck. I'm like, oh, that dude, is like one of the top 10 in the, and he was here today. Like, what? I didn't know that.
Exactly. Yeah. No,
I hear about it later.
I'm one of those guys. Like at this point, I'm neck deep in jiu-jitsu. Like,
You're a blue belt.
I'm a blue belt, and I've kind of put everything. My priorities at the time were completely messed up. Mm-hmm. Completely messed up. Like my focus was on the mat. I was focused on the mat, and a lot of things had gone to the wayside, but we had all this stuff going on. It's like, I want to be a part of this, you know? And next thing we know, here comes Joao Rocha. Mm-hmm. We're like, okay, at this point, it's like, okay, when he brings somebody in, we're all Googling and trying to figure out who these people are. It's like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Comes in, and let me tell you something. I've never been treated like a little 6-month-old baby. The first time I rolled with Joao, that was a complete experience that is just crazy. And then next thing we know, Formiga's coming in, and then...
Is Formiga living here at this time?
No, Formiga's still in Connecticut.
Okay.
Man, he's still up there hanging out. Man, he just has the connections again.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, we about this time, there's a little bit of a falling out between Randy and Johnny. They just decided to go separate ways. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. It happens.
Yep.
And so we're guarding jiu-jitsu, and next thing we know, it's like Randy's hitting it off with all these big wigs, and they're just flowing in. It's like the doors just opened, and it's just also these guys are coming in, and Formiga comes in. There's like they decide to become, Randy decides to become soul fighters.
Soul fighters, yeah.
So we went from, at that time we weren't guarding, we were Johnny MMA, so we had to change after the separation. We changed to soul fighters Midlothian.
Okay.
And so we have this guy named Moreno.
I've seen some of the gis around.
Yeah, there's some floating. And Moreno comes in. Formiga works it out where Moreno comes down and he starts coaching us. And holy cow, we didn't know what training was until Moreno came in and was like, what is this crazy stuff this guy's doing? I mean, he has us lining up in single file, and one of the drills is we put our hands on their shoulder and we jump over the person. We're just crawling. This is weird stuff. Like, what is going on? And
just dynamic athletic training, and
it's these compound things. It's just like, man,
unique to jiu-jitsu, or
and,
wrestling, or
exactly. And so we actually become, at the time, I think we were actually Joao Rocha's first affiliated gym. We actually fell underneath Joao. And about this time, they started opening up Lone Star Dallas pro training facility. Whew, that place.
Game
changer. So about this time.
Are you guys all invited to go? I mean, like, how does this work?
Yeah, so because we're kind of that in group, and kind of we're like the first one of the first gyms.
I can see there would be
we kind of get open invite for the most part. It's like, hey, come train. Yeah.
Where was this at?
It
was in downtown?
Dallas. It was not downtown. It was off of.
I've seen some of the videos, but I mean, this all predates me in Dallas anyway. So
off Royal.
Okay.
It was Dallas off Royal.
Yeah.
On the west side of 35.
Yeah. Right.
Industrial Park.
Right.
So there's not many of us that are.
There was a flow grappling video, I think, is the one that I first saw, and I saw where they were driving. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
Leave the BMW at home.
For sure. And we turn around, and there's only a couple of us that really have the cojones big enough to go up there and train.
I can see that being pretty intimidating.
Very intimidating, especially when you start to realize who these people are.
Yeah.
So a lot of things had transpired, and next thing we know, Formiga's moving down from Connecticut. Moreno's shipped up to Connecticut to teach up there, take a spot. And so now Formiga's teaching and has agreed with Randy for the next 2 years, 2 nights a week. He's coaching us I'm
at Midlothian?
At Midlothian, bro. At Midlothian.
It's nuts. I always wondered how all of these people, I mean, we haven't even got through the whole list yet, but like, I always wondered, like, where did this come from, Because like when I first got to Formiga's, there would be all these guys like at open mats, and I'm like, do you live nearby? Because, dude, I just got lucky. I'm just a, just fell into it, man. Blind squirrel style, dude. Just
Right.
straight up found a nut, you know? And, so I'm like, oh, do you live in Highland Village? Do you live in Denton or what? I'm like, no, I'm down in Midlothian, Waxahachie, Ennis. I'm like, what? Like, why are you here, man? Like, how did this it took a long time to figure out how this connection worked. And we were talking about it earlier, you know? It ain't that it's far. It's just that there's no reason to have that, you know, line drawn, you know?
So, so we're training, and all of a sudden they start talking about this Pan Am camp.
Okay.
I'm like,
so are you a purple belt now?
so yes, I had just got my purple belt.
Okay.
So, and this Formiga walks in the door.
So we got Joao, we got Formiga.
Pedro's walking in at this point.
Okay, Pedro is Joao's younger brother.
Yep. And so,
did you know he had a baby?
Yes.
I didn't know that until at Austin, and I saw him and Stephanie, and dude, that guy, man, I got to get him on. You got to help me get him on the podcast. I think you got a good relationship with him. But he just got so much going on. He started this new gym in South Lake. You know, he told me the story of it, and I'm not going to prelude it or anything because he's just going to have to come on and tell it. But dude, talk about a good human, man.
Yeah, Pedro's a good guy.
He's a super good guy.
But
so you're a purple belt.
Purple belt, and Formiga starts training. He convinces everybody we got to start competing. At this point, I've trained. We competed like once a year, and maybe hit a Naga.
Yeah.
You know, back then the Naga was the big thing.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted the samurai sword and the
and
championship belt.
And the belt, dude.
Yeah.
We have so many of those things up in our closets, dude.
Yeah,
I don't.
In the day, I don't have any at all.
Well, I didn't win them. It was my kids, dude. I was the guy that got the default third.
Right. Yeah.
Stood behind the banner with the other dude in third.
For sure. And so we started really pushing, man. And I did this Pan Am camp, and about halfway through it, I was second guessing life. And the first Pan Am camp was two times a day. So you trained early morning, you trained late night. And if you had the ability to, you rested in between. Some of us actually had to go to work and do things. And me and Ted was the first time I met Ted, and Marco Aguilar. It was the first time I met all those guys. And Ted's older than me. Ted's like, what, 50?
Dude, I think he's 57.
Yeah, he's up there.
Master 6. I know that.
Yeah, so he's up there, right?
I trained with Ted last night.
So I'm like, we're doing this camp, and about the third, fourth day in, and it's like I walk in, and I get this look from Joao, and for me, he goes, "Oh, you're here again." My body's here, but I think my soul left the first day.
So so backing up just a little bit, you went from essentially, I ain't rolling around with sweaty dudes, to like, I got the itch hard, rolled long enough, get your blue belt, step up to purple belt. You're probably 36, 37 or so, I'm going to guess.
No, I was
35.
30. See, I started when I was 34.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I was like 38, 39.
So what was the thought process like to go from, one thing to progress to the ranks, dude, everybody that sticks around long enough, believe it or not, you're going to get it. You just will. You will eventually absorb the knowledge, and you might not be the most athletic, or the fastest, but you will eventually get it. But to go into those waters, like at a professional training camp where you guys are doing 2-a-days, like you were talking about,
man,
what was the thought process like to go from, I'm going to do this thing down in Midlothian, and you're working, you got stuff
so
going.
the previous thought process.
Now you're going to go into Pan's camp with Rafael Formiga and Joao Roca.
Yeah, bro. So second guess that after going through it. But
is Rodrigo here then? Or he hadn't made it
not
yet?
Quite yet. No, Rodrigo's not here yet.
Still hanging out in Brazil?
Still hanging out in Brazil. And so, the thought process up to the point that Formiga walked in the door was, man, we're never going to do, we kind of talk about, we're not doing these big comps. We're never going to be that. We're just hobbyists. Mm-hmm. And we've in
staying in shape.
Yeah, staying in shape. It was more of a camaraderie. We actually,
a big thing, man.
We actually had a men's group that was meeting on Wednesday nights, which was crazy. The way everything kind of transpired. We were dealing with all kinds of guys coming off addictions. It was it had become kind of outreach type deal.
This
kind
is
of
coming right
combined
off
with
the
jiu-jitsu, right? Yeah.
A part of your classes, I guess, or like an informal piece.
Yeah. The end of class
awesome.
on a Wednesday. The guys would come in and we'd kick all. If there was any ladies there, the ladies got kicked out. And we kind of dealt with what guys dealt with.
Cool, man. That's awesome.
Which as guys, we don't do that. We're not vulnerable. We don't talk about things.
Yeah.
So to have that safe place that you can actually sit and talk, and you know, maybe it's you got in a fight with your girlfriend, or you're fighting with your wife, or you're dealing with some sort of addiction. You know, we would work through those things. I mean, there was nights I know Randy would be up there till 2-3 o'clock in the morning dealing with a guy that was coming off of a 3-day binge on coke.
Really?
And they were literally sweating it out of him.
That's crazy, man.
So I mean, it was a heck of a, and still is a good program. But
I think for anybody
then,
listening to that,
different.
The thing is, like, it can be really tempting when we're talking about, you know, the allure of competition and whatnot, and having all these great training partners. Dude, that can change in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
Your competition career could end in that one knee surgery.
Yep.
You know, the best training partner that you've got could move for work. You know, the world-class Brazilian that you've got teaching you could go back to Brazil, or could move from Connecticut to Texas, and you never know, man.
No.
But those things that you're talking about, having a group of people around you, having the camaraderie, the relationships that are built on the mat, I mean, to me, that's really what it's all about. You know, the rest is just cherry and whipped cream and all that other good stuff. It's been a really fun part about it, but man, I sometimes wonder about that, because we're talking about some of this stuff, and like, for people that don't have that experience in their gym, you know, embrace the experience that you can make, which is those relationships and the people that are around you, because that's what will stick.
Man, I'm telling you right now, you know, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the guys that I train with.
Yeah.
You know, and we say guys aren't vulnerable. Let's be honest. The second we get on the mat and we start rolling, we are vulnerable with each other, because I'm trusting my body with you that you're not going to snap something.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you're rolling with Anthony, then it's a whole different ball. So.
Dude, you got to tell me this story. You got to tell me this story.
But we'll get there.
Okay.
But
I won't prelude it too much. I know a little about it.
But you know, at this time everything's going crazy, and you know, you don't think that you're ever going to be on that stage. You're not going to be on that podium. You're not going to be there.
Yeah.
And there was something about
professional world-class level tournaments. Yeah.
There's something about the way Formiga did things and the way he's doing things that it changes a man's mindset. And again, I was one of those. Again, it's still at this point, I'm training like a mad dog. Like, if I've got a free time, I'm on the mat. You know, by this time, when you hit that first Pan Am camp, and I was like, I want to do this.
Yeah,
I want to do this, because we got into the second week, and it ended up being 25 classes in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, man. I mean,
so
2 weeks,
something like that,
two a days.
Listen, Ted had more than me, and he was older than me.
Dude,
Ted's a machine,
something else,
bro.
man. Dude,
Ted is a machine.
Going back to the beginning when I was talking about age. There was a time, and I mean, this was totally innocent and harmless, right? But like, first of all, Ted shuts any excuse off, right?
Yeah, no.
If you want to say anything about like, man, I'm turning 30 this year, I'm turning 40 this year, I'm turning 45 this year, which I am, you know, I see Ted and I'm like, it doesn't matter, you know? No. And I was watching this conversation take place, and it was exactly this. And Ted doesn't say anything. He just sits there, he's stretching, man. He's stretching. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't, like, whatever, you know. I'm not going to tell you, by the way, I got, you know.
Yeah, and you know, I had my meeting Ted.
I respect that so much, man. I really do. It has changed. It has changed, you know.
No, and it has. Like, even that first Pan Am camp, watching Ted, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to let this old man freaking outwork me. And he did. He ended up with like 2 or 3 extra classes than I did.
Yeah,
we were both
training, man.
We both pushed 20 of them, and it was funny because
Ted gets it in.
The second week, it was funny watching some of the younger guys fade out. I'm like, guys, this isn't the time to fade. This is the time to push.
Yeah. And
but things really changed, and mindset changed, and dedication changed, and I went from dedicated to, man, I was 150% in.
Yeah. I guess so.
I'm gonna do this. Like, and I had buddies like, hey, you know, and if I would only listen to them, because I think there's some points in my journey that I definitely want others to know is man, you got to make family time, and I didn't.
Yeah,
like there's some definite regret.
Yeah,
on a lot of aspects that I did some damage with some things, focusing on me and focusing on, you know, everybody says there's sacrifices that come with with things, and be careful of the sacrifices. 'Cause some of those sacrifices are not worth whatever. They're not worth a belt. They're not worth the medal.
The mats will be there.
Yeah, I look at the wall. I hung my medals up, like most people do in their own gym. I hung them up, but it's more of a reminder of times that I wasn't with my family than it was times of competing or actually doing anything.
That is a good tip. So, how do you go back? I mean, there's probably a way to balance it. But
there is.
It is difficult when you're in the moment, right?
And that was
everything seems so fleeting in jiu-jitsu, man. You've got these other people that you are just. Everybody says don't compare. Like, don't compare. You can't compare yourself. You got to stop comparing yourself. Oh, okay. Well, the dude was just on top of me, and he cross-collar choked me, and what is he doing that I'm not doing, and I'm going to do that, dude?
You look at it,
it's hard,
like,
man.
If I miss this class, well, so and so is going to be that much better than me tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so you get in the mindset, it's like push, and you see all these. At this time, I'm surrounded by these competitors, world-class guys, and I watch them push. I'm not seeing what's happening outside the mat. All I'm seeing is the mat, and I don't know what they're doing. I'm assuming they're just dedicating their entire life to jiu-jitsu. Maybe that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I'm still working full time, right? I'm finding my niches and being able to hit class, whether it be at lunch or whatever. And so, things just really at my purple belt leading into my brown belt, things changed drastically, and I started competing. I was like, Formiga said compete, I competed. He'd make the announcement, okay, I'm doing it. There's one trip that he comes in, he's like, hey everybody, we're going to we're doing the New Orleans Open. It's going to be the first one there.
Okay.
I'm like, cool, awesome. I sign up, get everything. Yeah, I sign up, get everything ready to go, and it was one of those things where I showed up and nobody was there.
Really?
Except me from my team. It's like it just happened that way. So I traveled by myself, I competed by myself, didn't have a coach. And this is one of those moments where it's like I wanted to open a gym no matter what. I'm a strong believer you have to walk the path, to lead the path.
Yeah.
So there's going to be times that you're going to have students that are going to have to prep, and I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
They're not going to have a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I did, and it was my first time winning gold at IBJJF.
Really?
And not only did I win my bracket, I won the open bracket. So it was like, okay, you know what? I can do this without I need my coach, but they don't have to be there every step of the way.
Yeah.
And which tells me, okay, I don't have to be there every step of the way for it. So as I transition my journey, I start to see it's like all those times that I was on the mat thinking I had to be there. The reality is you don't have to be.
Yeah.
There's things that happen. It's good for a student to go do a tournament without a coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get some real life experience.
I think you also realize there's parallels to that as well in everyday training. I mean, because if you wait, and I mean, JP Donnell made a comment about this, I don't know, a couple months ago while we were training. He travels like crazy. The dude is gone all the time right now. And I don't know, I mean, that's on purpose. I don't know how long he's going to keep that up, but I mean, obviously that filters into jiu-jitsu. And his comment was like, dude, if I just don't train jiu-jitsu because I can't get the reps in that I want, like what a weak mindset that is.
Yeah.
You're going to have a shoulder injury. You're going to have a knee. You're going to have a hip. You're going to have I'm tired. You're going to have I got this thing I've got in my throat right now. You know? Stuff's going to come up, and it just is rarely going to be ideal. And so, you got to be able to, temper your training to that and just be ready to go with what you got. Because originally jiu-jitsu, man, you're about defending yourself. You ain't going to get to pick your partner in a Sears parking lot when you get freaking,
Oh yeah. No,
three guys around the corner,
Yeah.
So it's a good experience.
So, but yeah, about this time, I guess I get my brown belt. I get my brown belt from Pedro Rocha. He's come in, and Formiga's opened up his school, and so Pedro and Rodrigo's moved in, and so Rodrigo and Pedro are coaching at Elevate. The one has 2 nights, the other one has 2 nights, and then me and a couple of guys are
talk about a game changer down.
Yeah, so I mean, we're training with these guys just nonstop.
What was it like having Pedro and I don't know Joao that well. Like I can't even claim to it. Like I met him for the first time in Austin. I mean, a lot of stuff had happened by the time I had, kind of entered the scene. Pedro's 20 something, 20. maybe. I don't know what he would have been.
Yeah, actually, probably back then. Yeah, he's
Rodrigo's probably 24 back then.
23 sometimes. They're close to the same age. Yeah.
Talk about a different animal than mid 30s. Yeah, well, Joao and Formiga.
Joao, Pedro, Rodrigo, they're all pretty close to the same age. There's not much difference. I think Joao just hit 30.
Oh, really? Okay, I thought he was a lot older than that. No. I got the impression that he was like Tatu and Formiga's age.
No. Joao's like 30. I think he just turned 30.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so you already had some young blood in there.
Yes, yeah. So we'd been pushing quite a bit of young blood.
Okay, cool.
Going through it. So that's what, again, the young blood.
So it wasn't
changed.
that big of a difference when Pedro came in. Because his pace is ridiculous, dude. I mean,
yes. And him and Rodrigo are so different. The styles are different. The coaching methods are different. So we were getting a lot of looks in a week.
That's an interesting comparison.
So
stick, carrot.
Yes. So
that's cool.
But
in two very effective ways,
So Pedro gives me my brown belt, and I do the Dallas Open in December, I guess. And I'm sitting there. I just got through doing the Open. I didn't do very well. It was my first brown belt debut kind of thing.
Know the feeling.
And so I was like, I'm sitting down with Formiga. We're sitting outside in the commons area, and we're talking. And I looked and I was like, man, I really think I need to cut weight. He's like, cut weight for what? I said, I'm going to do Worlds. He's like, oh, okay, yeah. He's like, you just had your debut, and you're going to do. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to do Worlds. Just got a couple months to get ready.
So Dallas was the same time frame, March.
So Dallas at the time, it was the winter Dallas.
Okay.
So it was in December we did the Dallas.
Okay, so you've got 8 months or so to get ready for Worlds.
Well, I'm off on my dates.
Oh, maybe I am. Maybe they changed them too. Yeah.
So this was
I'm just trying to think about how much time you had to actually prepare for this massive.
So it was a couple. So I got my brown. Maybe it was in June that I got my brown belt, because it was I only had 3 months. By the time I got my brown belts. By the time I got my brown belt to the time that I was going to compete at Worlds, I only had 3 months.
Okay. And
I was weighing probably like 235, and I was competing in this giant world of ultra heavy.
Yeah, dude, the Blakes of the world.
Yes, and so he's like, what do you got to cut? I'm like, I cut like 15 pounds probably. He's like, you got time? Do it. Okay, I'll do it.
Sounds like for me, seems something you can accomplish. What are we talking about?
Yeah. He's like, yeah, if you could do it, do it. I was like,
that's
okay,
awesome.
So I did it. And I'm like, so this was the first time I'd cut in all my training. This was 2020. We were dealing with COVID at the time. Mm-hmm. Everything was crazy. Training was actually even more crazy because I actually had matted my shop. And because all the gyms had closed down on that side, and we were paying Pedro and Rodrigo to come to my shop and teach us in my shop. Right. We had like 10 guys on the mat, and Rodrigo would show up one night, and Pedro would show up another night.
That's awesome, man.
So we were hammering it away still as much as we could. And dude, I cut the weight, and I went to Worlds, and boy,
game changer, huh?
Yeah, like. Man, I didn't go in with high expectations. I had a 10-man bracket.
Okay.
And
did you do a camp to get ready?
We did do a Worlds camp that year.
Okay.
It was limited because we still had COVID and stuff, but we still did the camp.
Was it in Vegas?
No, because of the pandemic. They actually had it in Florida that year.
Okay, Kiss Me, the Freedom State.
Yep. So exactly. So they had it down there, and so. So there's a group of us that went. It was me, Rodrigo, Monique, Formiga, Anthony, and I think there were just a couple other guys that went with us. And I'm nervous. I'm
sure,
crazy.
Man.
I'm like, this is the biggest thing I've ever done. This is the first time I've gone to Worlds, and we're sitting there and we're all getting ready. And I get in the pen, and by the time I get in the pen, Anthony's finishing up, and I look across the arena. And I see Anthony had gotten gold, and the next thing I see is Formiga and Rodrigo giving Anthony his black belt. I'm like, oh man, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Like I get this. I'm far away, but I'm here. I got to witness him getting his black belt. I'm like, that's so cool.
He told that story as well.
And Anthony gets his belt, and the first thing he does is he comes down there to me in the pen. He's like, okay, you saw what happened, right? I'm like, oh, bro, congrats, man. And he's talking. He's like, let's do your thing, man. And Anthony's kind of talking to me, kind of coaching me up. I was like, dude, I'm just nervous, man.
So you're a brown belt,
I'm
right?
a brown belt.
Yeah.
So
was Anthony
3 months.
Like 5 minutes earlier.
Yes. And so I'm sitting there prepping. I get ready to go out the first match. I'm like, whew. I go and I do my thing. This was before I actually had a thing, right? And I'm changing it right now, but
I don't know what your thing is, because your thing is always changing with me. I feel like you're using me as your crash test dummy.
Bro,
I'm your crash test dummy,
no,
dude.
because every time I do a thing, one round, the next round, you have stopped my thing.
Well, you've cost me a lot of money, dude, in privates. Let me just give you a little bit of confidence there. I'll be like, Formiga, dude. So here's what happened. That's why I stood up.
So this was the first time that I'd hit the punch sweep in any competition.
Okay.
I barely even hit it in practice. It's like not even a thing for me.
Is this a strategy going into your first match? I mean,
I had no idea what was going on.
You just want to go out there and compete.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I pull guard. The guy stands up. I punch sweep. I'm like, holy cow, that worked. Whoa. And I ended up winning by points. I didn't get the submission on that one, but I don't have many wins by submission, but I won that one by points. I'm like, okay, cool. And I go back to the ring. I'm like, I'm back in the pen, and I'm thinking, I just won my first match at Worlds.
At brown belt.
I'm like, dude, I start shaking. My palm starts, like, there's a tear in my eye.
Yeah.
It's like the amount of emotion that all of a sudden hits me. And about that time, I guess
who was coaching you?
Formiga.
Formiga's coaching.
So I guess about that time, Formiga sees me, and he comes over. He's like, you okay? He's like, good job. Calm down. I was like, Formiga, I won.
Did you know that? Yes, I was there.
Yeah, I was like, holy cow. He's like, just do your thing. Do the same thing again. Good game plan. Stick with it. I go out there and do the game plan. Win the second one. This time I think I won. This one I won again by points.
Did you pull guard again?
So I pulled guard again and played my same game.
Same game, yeah. Where you're comfortable.
Well, played where I was comfortable, and didn't know I was comfortable there till the Worlds. It was like, okay, we're just going to do this now. And I go back, and this time I start crying on my way back to the pen.
Oh man, emotions are
my
flowing.
Emotions are so jacked at this moment.
So was that the semis right there?
So at the time, I did not realize that.
Oh, dude.
So I get back, and Anthony Formiga comes up to me. He's like, "Bro, you're in the finals." I'm like, "What?"
Oh, like, no.
Really? He's like, "Yeah." He's like, and Anthony looks at me and says, just do your thing. Just keep doing the same thing. I said, that's the easy part.
Anthony's a seasoned competitor,
yes.
too, dude. I mean, he's been on the podcast. He's talked about his D1 wrestling career.
Yes.
You know, I mean, like this, the stage is nothing new to Anthony.
And
you're probably seeing stars at this point.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Man.
I'm shaking. I'm like,
what is it, like 16 mats? I mean, like, this is the big leagues, bro.
Like,
yeah.
What is going on here?
Yeah.
And, up to this point, man, I hadn't won too many competitions. I'm like, I'd win a match here and there, but nothing crazy. At this point, I don't even think I have a gold medal in my thing, in my in my bag. And
once again, I can relate.
And it's like, I'm like, man, I'm winning. I'm like, I'm doing really good. I'm like, wow. But Anthony looks at me. He's like, just do the same thing again. I'm like, just do you. I'm like, that's the easy part. In my mind, he kind of looks at me. He's like, that's But in my mind, I'm like, doing me is the easy part. I don't know what this guy's going to do.
Yeah.
I've watched him. He's kind of a wrestler guy, and he's killing it out there. I'm nervous. And I get in there, and by this point, dude, I've cried a couple of times before I've even gotten on the mat. And I don't know if anybody actually knew that. So,
yeah.
But I'm like, I'm shaking and I'm nervous, and I get out there, and man, the last 45 seconds, the guy passes my guard.
Really? Does he win by 2? Or
I think he wins by 2, and I take second place. And dude, I was like, the fact that I walked in with no expectation, all of a sudden I had an expectation. It's like, I'm taking gold. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
But then it's like bubbles popped. Okay? I'm going to tell you, the good Lord's looking at me. He's like, I'm going to take you up there, and then I'm going to take you back down.
Yeah.
And so I come off the mat, and for me, the first thing he does, he comes straight up to me. He gives me a hug. He's like, bro, I'm so proud of you. I'm like, no, but I didn't win, Coach. Professor, I didn't win. He's like, no, you don't understand. He said, man, and he looked at Anthony. He's like, man, it's easy to take somebody like Anthony that's wrestled all his life and put him on the big stage, and they do good. He's like, how long have you been training? I'm like, well, at this point, it's like 7 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and he's like, man, you just confirmed that I'm doing the right things. Mm-hmm. We took an average Joe that's never trained, that's never done individual sports, and you're on the podium at one of the largest.
Yeah, 6 states away, and
this largest competition, and it was so calming.
Yeah.
To just the way he talked and chilled. You know, was I disappointed? Yeah, but at the end of the day, I was so stoked at the same time. It's like, man, I actually did it. Like,
Yeah.
in that moment, I remember back, 4 or 5 years, we were talking about, I'm never going to do Worlds, dude, we're just too old for that.
Yeah.
We're not going to get there. We're not going to do
right?
it. And the next thing you know, you're doing it. And so it's like, it's just like, I don't know how to fully to describe the feeling, because it was pretty freaking awesome.
At what point had you already at this point started forming the
Yes.
mental foundations for Falcon BJJ?
Yes.
I mean, wanting to open the
Yes.
school at this point. I mean, you
So
got your brown belt. You've now performed.
So I'd already been, in 2018, 2019, somewhere in there, I'd already started teaching the kids comp class at that time. We had changed to Elevate.
Okay,
was
down
the
in
name of it,
Midlothian.
Down in Midlothian.
Okay.
I was
I keep
coaching.
saying down in Midlothian. I mean, it's home for you, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
like,
but
we're up in-
yeah. But yeah, I started coaching I was teaching the Friday nights beginners class. Pedro and Rodrigo are all over the week, and I'm doing the Friday night thing, and then I'm helping run the competition kids class and doing all the tournaments with the kids. I was already always on the mat, and so the mindset was, it's like, I'm already on the mat. Why not own a gym?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went, and when we finally got to that point, about 3 years ago now, I went to Randy and took him to lunch. He's like, listen, this is what I want to do, and he was all for it. He was supportive. My wife has been all for it. Everybody's, and I think for my wife, it was kind of a bittersweet thing. She's like, you already dedicated all this time to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And not to your family. It's like, in her mind, it's like, you might as well make some money at it if you're going to do this. And listen, you don't open
change some lives.
Yeah,
too,
you don't open up a gym to make money. It's not what it's. If it's your livelihood, yeah. But somebody like me, that's not what I'm doing. It's providing that service, that creating that community and that vibe.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty crazy. Everything kind of sped up at that point.
Yeah. How does that conversation work? I mean, is this something you talked to Formiga about?
So I went to Formiga before I went to Randy.
Mm-hmm.
Hindsight 2020, I probably should have had a conversation with Randy before going to Formiga. But I went to Formiga because I wanted to be 5'5", so I wanted to have the holy blessing, from Formiga saying, I'm completely okay with you opening a gym underneath 5'5".
Yeah.
And he was. He's like, because it was one of those things. I wasn't a black belt at the time. I was a brown belt, and there's limitations with brown belts. As far as competitions, coaching, and stuff. You got to be certain belts in some competitions to even be a coach.
Yeah.
So making sure that things are covered in the way they need to be.
I think there was a story of like the Pettigrew guy that couldn't get the team trophy because he wasn't black belt yet, or something like that.
Yeah, there's definitely some
stuff like that happens all the time. So yeah.
So Formiga was completely on board with it, and so I went and had the conversation with Randy. We were good, and some things transpired between the time that I opened, and I ended up leaving Randy's and coming to Formiga and training full time. The split started out mutual, and it's just one of those things that just kind of happened. I didn't do some things right in how I handled some things, some of the more learning lessons, in how I did some things with the split. But me and Randy are good. I mean, we're not as close as we were, but we're good. You're right.
Yeah,
we're working through that.
So you're training full time down there, and now you're looking to train more
up in Village now, because I've lost my own gym essentially, and Formiga opens his arms with fully and pulls me in. And it's like, let's
What's
go.
What's that like, train? I mean, schedule wise for you, like what do you try to get in up here? At that time, dude, that's been a trigger for me over the years.
At that
I
time,
am lazy. I will prove to everybody that if there is a barrier in my way, historically, I used it as an excuse to get out. I have no excuse right now. I live so close to the gym that in 10 minutes I could be on the mats.
At this point, it's
that
about
is not your situation.
At this point,
not with Highland Village.
No, and at this point, it's about prepping myself for owning a school.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I've seen.
So you need the instruction. You need the the exposure.
And that's the thing is I've seen so many times guys open up gyms and life and busyness gets in the way of them continuing their learning. And that's one thing that I've told myself. I'm going to open a gym. I have to make sure I'm constantly learning, because if my ability caps, my students' ability will cap.
Yeah.
And so I have to be progressing nonstop in order to progress my students. So basically lunch breaks, I'm hitting Highland Village. And then at that time, I was driving up here at night trying to train a couple of nights a week.
I remember, I think that's probably where you and I first met.
Yep.
I remember doing some nighttime trainings with you. In fact, I remember when you were doing some camps, training with you for like maybe the second or third time for your day.
Yeah.
I was your, third round of rounds.
It was crazy. Like so many rounds.
Yeah.
I think my body's finally catching up to me now.
That's something I got to talk to you about that here soon.
But it was definitely one of those things. We everybody gets on board and we start planning. And it was funny. It's like I had this place picked out and we had signed a contract, but it wasn't quite complete yet.
Yeah, it all looked like it was relatively new construction.
It was all that's new construction.
So none of that was there?
None of that was there. And so
rows and rows of, like, I don't know what those would be called, like stand-up buildings.
Yeah. And so nothing was there, and so we signed a contract. I call up Gameness. I order my mats. I have my mats shipped to my house because it was one of those situations where I'm getting money into this and I'm getting involved.
Yeah.
I need to open ASAP.
Yeah.
A year later.
Is it a year later in the plans, or is this just okay.
No. A year later is not in the plans, and it just took forever for them to finish the building.
Yeah.
Had some construction issues. We're post.
What year did you want to open up?
What year are we in right now? So I opened up in 2022. I wanted to open up in 2021.
Okay.
And we ended up opening up in 2022. And so at this time now, I had, as part of some of the issues, there was a group of people that followed me. They wanted to continue my training.
I get it.
And so, like I said, I matted out my shop. And so for 8 months, we did classes in my shop in the evening times. And so we finally kind of get open April of last year, I think is what it was, May of last year. And some learning curves and some bad choices on my end. We had a lot of changing of things, and me realizing up to this point I had put my family second and put jiu-jitsu first. There were some definitely learning curves and some things that we started working through.
Yeah.
The growth at first wasn't very quick. Wasn't what I expected.
Is it because of jiu-jitsu, or is it because of the simple fact that you were plunging into a whole new business? I mean, like, you're not just...
it's years and years of things, of years and years of choosing jiu-jitsu. I mean, I actually hit 10 years.
It's a good warning for everybody. I mean, myself included.
Next month. I hit 10 years next month. And listen, in this entire conversation, I literally, which we skipped over, Anthony... you
didn't tell me how Anthony...
So real correct, we'll go back. And so we get done with Worlds, and everybody's pumped. Everybody's done really good. It was like, we're hammering on the training. And so me and Anthony are rolling.
God, that must have been an awesome trip back from Florida. Dude, I'm just sitting there thinking about it right now. Like, I can only imagine you couldn't have put me you could put me in the smallest economy seat in the world, man, or tuck me in the back seat of a, hatchback. I'm driving back from Worlds with a silver medal, dude. You cannot wipe the grin off my face.
So we get
Anthony's
back.
got a black belt in his back pocket.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that happen. So we get back and we're all pumped, man. We were all on a high. And so the training starts immediately. We're hammering it. It's like we're getting ready for Pans now, because Pans will be the first big tournament of the year. And, man, I think it was in January. Yeah, it had to been January, beginning of February. Me and Anthony are rolling, freak thing. He ends up in mount. He goes to modify mount and hits the backside arm bar. And it was on my shoulder that I have no rotation in. And so it was the perfect storm. He had the perfect pressure in the perfect place. And I reacted perfectly wrong. And my elbow completely inverts to the other side.
What?
Rips my ulna completely.
What is an ulna? Is that some kind of a tendon or something?
It's a ligament on it.
Okay.
It helps function your elbow on the bottom side.
That sounds important.
But the elbow completely goes the other way, like 6. And I roll, scream, and
this is at
the
the mat. It's okay.
I end up laying on the mat for like I don't know, it's probably laying on the mat for like an hour and a half. Couldn't even get up, nauseated from the pain.
Yeah.
Drive home. 4 weeks later,
Long drive home.
4 weeks later, I could go to actually have a doctor look at it.
Oh, that's a good strategy.
So, I thought, it's okay. I can move it a little bit. It was swollen. A little duct tape to make it go away.
Sounds like something you need to cover in your men's group.
Yes.
Self-care.
So I snap it and take I'm off the mat 3 months. The longest stint in the 9.5 years or 10 years in April that I've actually taken off the mat continuously was the 3 months that I had my elbow snapped. Thank you, Anthony, by the way. But yeah, it was just like he was a freak thing. Like he felt like horrible about it.
I'm sure,
I think he almost cried. Like
the
softy he is, because it's just like you just hurt when it was just, man, there was no bad feelings. There's nothing like love Anthony.
Happens,
I just love Anthony to death.
Sometimes that happens. We all kind of enter into that knowing that could be the case.
Yeah, it could happen to anybody any day of the week.
I've been on the receiving and the giving end of that.
Yes.
Where I was like, I injured somebody's knee once with a De La Eva. And, dude, I even asked afterwards, I'm like, what could I have done different? And it's like, it's not what you could have done different. It's what they should have done. And, there's like anatomically correct responses that an athlete should just do naturally. And it didn't happen. And dude, I was like that too. I wanted to cry, man. I was like, oh my God, I feel like freaking,
dude, it's the worst feeling
couple millimeters high right now. Yeah.
Worst feeling in the world.
I don't know what's worse, hurting or getting hurt,
Yeah.
But anyway,
But
your elbow's inverted essentially. Not exactly.
That's the craziest thing.
That is nuts, dude. What did you do during those 3 months? I know we want to get back into Falcon. But
I showed up. I showed up at the gym, and actually, Randy and my buddies, one night they knew how down I was about not training. Because at the end of the day, I completely dedicated the last however many years to training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, I can't do it. So I kind of had a pretty low moment, and dude, the guys showed up with food and barbecue and a couple beers. And we had a night out by the fire, and it was kind of a reboost. And I would still show up to the.
Were you casted up, or you just needed to
one of those
bracelet?
Yeah, it's a bracelet. You could mobilize, immobilize.
Okay.
You set the settings where it needed to be. So did some rehab,
Okay, cool.
And some other things to help speed up the process.
3 months, man. 12 weeks is a heck of a.
Dude, that was a long span, and that was really quick. Actually, the doctor was impressed how fast I got back.
Yeah, at 40 plus.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the guys stepped up and pulled me out of that kind of the moment. And then, dude, again, another one of those times with the camaraderie and your buddies. Have said they step in and help you. It's one of the beautiful things about jiu-jitsu is the people you meet and the bonds you create. We literally. Blood, sweat, and tears on the mat.
An inverted elbow is not part of your journey, man.
No.
You know what I mean? Like that's just the way it is.
It is. So, but everybody come in and I go help coach. Watch the kids, whatever it be, and go through that. But that was a big thing. But that was the biggest moment the biggest stint that I'd ever taken off. And again, I still did the jiu-jitsu thing instead of hanging out with the family. And I keep reiterating that because it's really big and weighs on me. The time that I've spent in jiu-jitsu and not with my family.
I can tell it weighs on you. There's I guess that is just a part of life in everything that we face. We were talking earlier, just kind of chatting informally before we started recording about just work and whatnot and like having to travel and everything. Like that same story goes for folks that have, just been the empty suit at home, where like, dude, I just took it too far, like there's this feeling that I need to get out and make money. I need to build a career.
Dude, and the crazy thing is my wife would look at me and it's like, you're going to wake up one day and we're going to be empty nesters. And where are you going to be? Guess what? I'm there. It's like, but the beautiful thing, part of the beautiful thing is we have Falcon. And Falcon is your school. So
Faulkner is
Faulkner.
Okay, is that
so Faulkner? So Falcon is derived actually from the English surname of when we're Faulconeers.
Okay,
Falconeers.
Okay.
So there's a family tie there.
So there's some symbolism.
Symbolism in training falcons.
Okay.
in that aspect.
Okay.
And so that's where we come up with the name.
That's
for
cool,
Falcon.
man. You're
So,
lucky you've got the connection because it ties in good with jiu-jitsu, you know?
No, it does.
I don't know what mine would be. I got to come up with a new name.
But yeah, I guess about 6 months ago, things started really turning around.
When did you officially open?
April of last year.
April
May
of
of last
21,
year.
22. April and May of 22.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, that's cool.
April
Yeah.
2022. And
Gosh,
so,
that's almost a year.
Yeah. No, we're approaching a year, and like I said, man, things kind of were really rough in the beginning. Just working through some things, and man, all of a sudden, man, my wife gets on the mat. Some things have changed. My mindset had changed. I had changed. Big shout out to JP and Steven, because there were some rough times there that they stepped up and kind of helped walk me through some stuff.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, man.
Just being a support system.
Yeah, just being a support system.
I can see both of those guys being that way.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of guys to that list, but
yeah,
I'm going to call out to those two.
That's awesome
on that. But my wife starts training. She's on the mat with me. She's led like crazy things. She's been training 6 months, and it's like 7 days a week.
That's nuts.
Our Sundays.
It sounds like she got the bug like you did.
Bro,
dude.
our Sundays used to be hang out and just chill. That was my day not to do anything. And now it's like, Saturday night, it's like, okay. She's like, we're going to Bushido tomorrow. I'm like, we're going to open mat tomorrow. She's like, yeah. I was like, I can't train. I said, we'll go though, because it's her time, right? At this point, it's, she's like, I'm supporting, like, because I'm stoked. I am absolutely stoked about her being on the mat.
Well, I don't see her limping along either. Like, she seems like she's fit and ready to go.
No,
like,
yeah.
Not plagued with injury or.
Oh no, wait. She got some injuries, but she's a tough cookie,
yeah,
right?
I can tell.
But she's done 3 competitions. She took silver first, took gold both her second ones. So I'm really stoked about that.
It's going to go well as well.
It
will have already happened by the time this comes out.
Yeah, so I'm pretty stoked about that. But to see her on the mats, man, I mean, I've always had the connection with the kids, and she's really connecting with the kids. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the kids are bringing stuff to her, like cards of saying thank you and thank you for helping give me confidence with things. And she's just, like we were talking before, is she's kind of the soft and I'm the hard. And she brings a whole different aspect. And so together we're able to grow this vibe and this thing that we've got transforming daily. Yeah. The crazy thing is
I could tell, man.
When everything was kind of crazy and everything was kind of broken in the beginning, when we first opened, there's a lot of stuff going on. And now that we've kind of got everything kind of flowing the way we want it, and that we got the people that we want in there, and people are coming in. We're actually approaching 90 students. We're at 90 students right now. Potentially here in the next month, I've got prospects that I could break 100 students in the next month. So I'm completely stoked about that.
That's amazing.
My competition program is working. It's showing itself. Mm-hmm. With the way the kids are competing. I mean, I've got these 6 kids right now: Nathaniel, Kayla, Jensen, Brinkley, Lucas, that are just, and Maddie, my little baby giraffe. She's 6. She's my youngest one. But they're just firing on all cylinders, man. And it's amazing to watch these kids to take something that I know into it. It's kind of one thing to teach an adult. You kind of expect an adult to kind of understand most of it, but to teach a kid, especially at 6. I mean, to be able to chain things together and to understand movements and to see it come out, not just in drills and not just in class, but to see it come out in comp and to listen to me coach them step by step in a comp is a pretty amazing feeling. Yeah, it seems like you found your calling a little bit there too. It's not exactly something you'd get the opportunity to do working in construction or in those career fields. And I mean, I know even work-wise, like for me, that's been the most rewarding, is when you have an opportunity to apply some mentorship to people. And I mean, like I was saying before, I mean, all kidding aside, man, I mean, I had a chance to sit there because I needed to plan around rush hour. And once I had you, dude, I got there a little early. So I had like a good 45 minutes to sit on the mats in the corner and stretch out and watch and whatnot. And I mean, it was obvious to me right away. I'm like, this dude's found his spot, man. Because I just didn't know that side of you at all. Well, I've got one kid. He's 9. He's been with me like 3 years. In fact, the same night that I got my black belt from Formiga, which was a complete surprise.
We'll get into that.
But I awarded him his yellow white, and this kid is just killing it right now.
Really?
I mean, he is killing it right now. But we're talking about a kid that he's on the mat 5-6 days a week.
Yeah.
Does privates on weekend with me.
Really, dude?
Like, it's crazy. He's 9, and yes, I'm
kid with like light hair, blonde hair. I've seen him, man. I've seen him.
We it's funny because we'll be doing a private, and his brain will fire off. He's like, "What if I do this?" And I'm kind of looking back, and I'm like, I hate you right now. The fact that you're a 9-year-old and your brain is functioning in that way just makes me sick. I'm 44 and my brain can't even begin to think the way you're thinking.
Yeah. He's seeing the moves ahead.
Yeah, and it's just crazy to see something like that, And dude, and I love that kid that did it. It's Nathaniel's the one. I call him, and he dyed his hair. I don't know why in the heck
is that why it's light?
Oh my gosh, the kid just killed me with the orange hair. He says it's gold, but it's orange.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a little freak of nature, man.
That's amazing, dude. That's amazing. I can't wait to see how you got the kids competition program coming up. Obviously, I mean that's already speaking for itself. It takes time with the adults, because the waters are deeper and the spectrum's wider. But like as that generation of blue belts comes in, and now you've got a row of blue belts in, and you've got new white belts that can come in and see those. You get some guys that sprinkle in with purples and browns and maybe some blacks and stuff, that pop in from the area. Dude, that's gonna be a hell of an environment to train in. It's really cool to see.
I'm stoked to see what I'm seeing right now. I'm
really cool to see. Well, while we're on it, before we get into, I definitely want to talk about the big promotion. But when I was in there, I mean, I think that you had some guys that were relatively new the other night when I was training.
Oh, most of them.
What do you tell them? I mean, what is the advice for the white belt? You and I have both been through it, man. I started training when I was 29. You started when you were 32, 34, or something like that, 34, right? Yeah. I mean, okay, so I know I can pick some mistakes along the way that I might have made. I mean, to fast forward some of that and help some of these guys skip over maybe some of the errors of our ways. What do you tell your new white belts?
Really, man, I tell them my experience. I try to look back on what would have made a difference with me. And so many times we were taught one movement at a time. Mm-hmm. Here's an arm bar. Here's a triangle. But to understand sequences and to teach, I'm big into teaching linear paths. Like not just here's the arm bar, here's how you get to the arm bar, here's if the arm bar fails, here's if this fails. I teach a sequence instead of just one move. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing massive, and I've never been taught that way, ever. But I'm seeing massive progression with my kids with it. So I'm kind of carrying it into my adults.
Interesting.
And seeing how it does with adult brains. But I tell them it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You know, and you hear that over and over again. Consistency is key.
Yeah.
When you can, whether it's one night a week, right? Or it's 4 nights a week. My suggestion is if you're 20 years old, instead of going out and drinking, come do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, do something valuable.
Do something productive.
Yeah.
But for those that are married and working, it's like, get it when you can.
Yeah.
And again, keep in mind, family first, but you've got to work out that balance. And I've actually sat down and had this conversation with Tunde because he was having some issues with working his balance.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, sit down with your wife. Do what I didn't do.
Yeah.
Look at her and say, hey, I really want to do this. I want to do this with you.
This is my season.
It's time to prep.
Yeah.
What days are you okay with?
Yeah.
What days do we need to make sure we set aside? And that's probably the biggest advice is to find that balance with your significant other, whoever that may be, a girlfriend, whatever. But find that balance because, man, you will grow up and at some point be empty nesters. And you've got to be able to make that joint back together after the kids are gone. And if you don't have that thread that threads continually, it's almost like, I'll tell you right now, it's starting over again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's at the end of the day. And so, we started up our men's group at my gym 2 weeks ago. And that's one of the things we talk about. We talk about the role of a man in the family and being able to understand family is first. Even beyond income, you got to make sure your family's taken care of. but being a man and leading from the front. So, and I say that because most people that are jiu-jitsu, the female crew is growing. Mm-hmm. It's definitely growing.
Yeah.
But it still hasn't reached what it is for the men.
Yeah, it's clearly predominantly male.
Predominantly male. So for those dads out there, find the balance. Dude, I preach it over and over.
Yeah.
Because I've lived it. I've made the mistakes, and I'm one of those like, okay, I've walked this path. And so different than so many before me on this podcast is where they took the breaks.
Yeah.
And, they took the spans. I hammered it. I hammered it for 9.5, 10 years, and I paid the toll.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with my consequences with it, and you don't have to.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at is you can do jiu-jitsu and find the balance.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest key is finding balance in life, and don't get to the point where you're burning yourself out. Don't get to the point where you're not training at all. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to be on the mat, that's the day you need to be on the mat.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. Ultimately, that's some of your best training.
Yes. That's when I find that I start to find
the problem is it starts into that slope, right?
Yes.
Right?
And
all of a sudden you're going down quick.
You have to be careful.
Yeah.
You have to be careful to where it's like all of a sudden you have a good time. It's like, okay, it's time to just.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit it 6 months. No, not missing any, right?
I know. I'm going back today. I was there 3 times already.
Yeah.
I know. I can see how. I'm kind of going through that myself right now. You know what it does though, and just thinking about this as you're kind of going through it. It forces you to be accountable to yourself.
Yes.
If you said, look, I'm gonna I've sat down and I've worked this out. What I can afford from a time perspective right now is to do this on Tuesday and Thursday. Let's just say hypothetically. That seems actually to be kind of a common thing for folks, for whatever reason. I'm going to hit the Tuesday and Thursday 6 p.m. class. What you can do is you can go in and you can make that the most productive time that you possibly can. You could have an objective when you walk in, you could have an agreed plan with your coach, like somebody like yourself, somebody like Formiga. You can sit down. It's okay to go and approach your coach and say, look, I'm not really sure how to approach my game. I'm lost.
Right.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
I just happened to be a purple belt when I finally did it,
Right.
But, and then all of a sudden, like now I had a lot more time to devote to it, but like that Tuesday and Thursday night that you think is not adequate and you're watching the people around you, you're comparing yourself to people that are able to devote more time, at least you're making it as productive as you possibly can.
And I have people come to me. It's like, what do you do when, let's just say I have somebody like Blake who's huge, dominates the mat.
Yeah.
He doesn't know much, but he dominates the mat.
Right.
Well, what does he need to do? Because does he need to change gyms? No. He needs to understand that he needs to put himself in bad situations and work from the bad situations. If you find yourself on top every single match, change it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to find yourself that when you end up on your back, you're like a turtle on your back and you're not getting anywhere. So you have to understand. Again, balance plays a factor, and you need to have a balanced top and bottom game. Just like balancing life itself, you've got to be able to balance your life. So there's so much that ties into jiu-jitsu.
For sure, man.
If you take the time and look at it and see where things can tie in.
Yeah. He's not going to have many people that are going to be able to put him on his back.
No.
And so, I don't know what kind of commitment he has to train, but for somebody hypothetically like him that could only do 2 hours a week, right? Let's say all the more reason to have that game plan.
That's exactly right.
Like all the more reason, to get as productive as possible.
Oh yeah.
So you had a couple old guys there, and you and I joke about this all the time. And again, I can't be a hypocrite. I can't say that I'm not gonna, age isn't a factor. You got guys like Ted that are just like, I don't even know what you're talking about, man. I was out of freaking high school when you were in elementary school,
exactly.
dude. You had barely, hit puberty, and Ted's driving his hot rod, But dude, it's real. You start getting banged up a little bit. Mm-hmm. What do you do? You're in a different level now, man, because you're there every night.
Yeah, I'm there every night.
The mats are calling. How do you deal with injuries, man?
Very carefully.
Yeah.
Even right now, I have to have the right people around me, because I may show up to class and may not be able to raise my leg up or whatever right now. And it's because I've damaged something to my groin. Mm-hmm. So it's been relatively hard to even teach. So I lean on my team. Even now, I lean on my son. I lean on people to help teach. But for the most part, man, it's learn to take time off.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think the good Lord gives us injuries to force us to take the time off when we've gotten our direction so jacked. And we're on that path. We're doing it every day.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're so bullheaded. I'm not taking a day off. I don't care what it is. Take the time. Take the time now so that you're not taking 6 months off later.
Yeah.
You know, because so many people push it to the point that it's like, okay, something just snapped. It's done.
Yeah.
My career's gone. Like we were talking about a while ago, is at any moment it could change. You get to that older stage in your life, and it's like you've got to find, again, you have to find that balance of when to push, when not to push. You know, make sure you're eating healthy. Make sure you're doing all the other things right. You know, if you're sitting around eating hamburgers and pizza every day and training, you're probably going to have some issues.
Yeah.
So being healthy with it, you know, learning to stretch. I still to this day don't stretch.
You're a funny example of that, dude. You and Mark, man, where you're these two guys you're both old guys, quote unquote, you know, and I'll watch you guys in the warm up. I'm like, no, it ain't happening, dude. Now, not to go too far off towards it. Now, when I did our first hot yoga session yesterday. This is a commitment I've got, dude. I am committed to like turning this corner in terms of like mobility and whatnot.
Right.
Because I want to make it, man. You know, I want to get to where you're at. And do you want to talk about humbling? I clearly have a white belt in hot yoga. I mean, dude.
I want video, bro.
No, you don't,
video.
man.
I want video.
No, I'd be afraid of how quickly that went viral, man. Because there's this old lady next to me that's sitting there looking like her body's like spaghetti. It just folds like however you want it to. And I'm like this rickety dude, sweat pouring off of me, you know. But anyway, the point is that it is something that I've had to adjust myself.
Yeah, you know.
Do you pair people up every night?
Yes, you know what? I do. I follow from you because I think...
I'm talking about like when we spar.
Yeah, when we spar.
Right?
No,
yeah.
and I a lot of times I'll even do it in class. If I see somebody having, in drills, but if I see somebody having issues with a certain body type, I will try to pair them up to where they have to physically work their drill around that body type they have issues with.
Yeah,
but I do because I've got some older guys to train.
Yeah.
So I have to be careful. I want them to come back. You know.
Yeah.
I don't want them to get hurt rolling with some 22-year-old hyped up kid.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Doesn't mean any harm, but man,
I follow Formiga's lead on that.
Yeah.
Watching him, you know, there's definitely a rhyme and reason on how he pairs people up.
Yeah.
And it's just like you don't see him put somebody like Isaac with Monique. Right?
Yeah.
So they're
ordinarily.
Yeah, and you know, guys get lazy. They have a hard round, and they go, I'm going to take this round off. If Formiga says you have a hard round, okay, you're going to have another hard round.
Yeah, right.
You know,
right.
He wants to push the envelope. And so I do the same thing. I try to do the same thing. And I've got, especially with my women, my wife, you know, I've got a half a dozen ladies that train. There's certain guys I don't want them training with. Mm-hmm. Not because I'm worried about the guy. I'm worried about how he rolls. He rolls a little rough.
Yeah. Doesn't know how to control it.
Doesn't have the control yet. So let's be leery of that. I think it's really key. I think it's, as the professor and as the coach, it's your job to make sure your students are safe.
Yeah.
Some of it falls back on them, but you know, you get the bullheaded guys that don't want to tap because you're going to get hurt if you don't tap.
Yeah.
One way or the other, or put to sleep. So, but I think there's some responsibility that falls on you as an instructor to make sure your students are safe and in that environment, and they want to come back. Mm-hmm. They know they're not going to get stuck with that 20-year-old muscle-bound guy and just wear them out.
Yeah.
So,
you've got kind of an interesting situation because your wife trains and your daughters have trained too. Mm-hmm. What do you tell a female practitioner that wants to keep themselves safe on the mats, but it's pretty intimidating, man? I can only imagine. I mean, there's plenty of female, dude, I've gotten myself just thrown around. Like, I mean, so it is not it is 100% an even playing field at a certain point, you know, but like, I can imagine, like if I had a daughter and she came and wanted to train jiu-jitsu, I mean, dude, it seems like a different.
Listen,
it could be intimidating. How do they handle that?
Honestly, I treat them like I do my kids. Uh-huh. I tell them, I was like, listen, there's two things in here. If it hurts and you can't breathe, tap.
Yeah, well, it's a good tip.
At the end of the day, and I said, and especially with the females, if they find a guy that's just sitting on top of them and they're in mount and they're not moving, there's a reason for that. Because I've got, my wife is one of them, and then I have another lady that trains with us. They're really good. They're white belts, but they're really good. Mm-hmm. And these new guys walking on the mat don't want to get beat by a female.
Yeah.
So they will get on top and just hold. I like to look at them. It's like, listen, if you can't get out, just tap.
Yeah.
Start over.
Yeah.
Listen, I try to check after every round and make sure I kind of look around. I scan the room. Okay, who's not normal?
Yeah.
You know, and once you've been on the mat, doesn't lie. You can tell who's still feeling okay. They got some juice left, so I can push the envelope. So I try to take a lot of the second guessing out for them.
Yeah.
By pairing up. So if I see somebody get just hammered, I make sure they have an easy round next round. So I kind of do the same thing with the females.
Yeah.
You know, it's just making sure that they're staying safe. You know, and I tell them, like, listen, at the end of the day, if you get jumped in the real world,
yeah,
it's probably not going to be a 115-pound guy.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they probably have that much of a weight advantage on you.
Yeah, so for you to work through that thought process of the drowning effect or being overpowered, being in that vulnerable moment, working on that on a daily basis is key, is crucial.
Yeah.
It's crucial. Same thing with my Leos. I've got a Leo program that I'm doing. I've got 15 police officers trains with me. And I tell them, like, show up to the mat, train, because you learn to deal with that frustration here so that you don't have to deal with the frustration out there in the field.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same concept. It's more of a concept as a whole for my team is versus individual female male.
Yeah. When and I've talked about this a lot on the podcast about injuries and about how I've handled injuries in particular, but as an instructor and as a gym owner, and I'm curious, like, and this might be something that is custom to each instructor and each gym, but like typically what I'll do, and I'll just give an example from this week. Tuesday, I trained Tuesday morning. What is today, Friday? Tuesday morning, I trained at the 6:30 a.m. class. We went hard. We gave it all we got. Good rounds, you know, normal Tuesday morning. Lifted in the afternoon. We did some De La Riva passes, and I didn't get the reps I needed. So I went back that night because I wanted to get some more technique. Great balance in life, right? Talking about that. But I couldn't spar. Didn't have it in me, right? I couldn't go and hit the rest of this week. So I told Formiga, like, I want to work some mobility while you guys spar. What kind of rules of engagement or tips do you have in your gym? I mean, is that something that's in play if somebody doesn't quite have it in them to hit the whole class that night, or like? Listen,
I have guys that are hurt. I'm like, listen, I know what it's like to be off the mat. You start to really mess with you because you replay. What was it that Tristan said? Make
bad habits hard to do, good habits easy to do.
So when you create that, you get hurt and you get injured. Sometimes it's easy to get into that lull where you just don't go.
Yeah.
And I tell the guys, don't come up here every night, but come up here and at least keep the jiu-jitsu brain going.
Yeah.
Show up, be with the guys.
Yeah.
Be with the crew, be with the team. Watch the technique. Maybe you can't do it. Watch the technique. And then you're staying, it helps that balance of when it's time to get back on, you haven't been non-jiu-jitsu brain for however many weeks or even months at times.
Yeah.
I've done that myself, is find myself when I get injured, I'm at the gym and I'm trying to at least visually learn whether I can physically do it or not. And so if there's time, for instance, if I have somebody prepping for a tournament, okay, it's not the time to push. Y'all go over there, drill your game.
Yeah.
We're not going to change your game. We're not going to add to your game. You're competing this weekend.
Yep.
Drill your game.
Right.
Flow roll it. Don't push anything.
Yeah,
you don't
need to be ready.
Injuries. So to get the reps in, because ultimately reps in's what keeps the muscle memory in play.
Yeah.
So it's kind of where I play with that on that one.
It's a tough balance, man.
It is.
If for whoever's listening, this is a topic that actually comes up a lot offline. Like, I've gotten a lot of questions that have flown my way, and I've had a lot of comments that have come at me as well, because a lot of people get injured, you know, and it's not a fair representation at the school, because guess what? When you get injured, you're not there anymore. So you can't say, oh yeah, I see people that sit out all the time, because a lot of times they're not there, you know what I mean? So there might only be, you know, it's not a fair, you know, kind of sampling of you know, the whole populace here. But every school is a little bit different. And so, like, wherever you're at in the world, you know, training jiu-jitsu, I would tell you, you know, you work that out with your professor and make sure that you guys have an understanding of it. But I don't know what it is about my current situation. It could be my gym. It could be my relationship with Formiga that makes me more comfortable. It could be the fact that I'm more senior, at this point than I was before. But I've only now recently felt like that was even possible. And I'm always asking that question,
like I don't even have my guys, like if they're hurt, I'll tell them, listen, I don't care if you dress out, be on the mat.
Yeah.
Be on the mat with your team.
Yeah.
Sit over on the side, do what you can.
Yeah.
Stretch if you want to stretch. In some cases, if it's somebody that's been training for a long time, or I say a long time, for 3 or 4 years, maybe they're a high level blue belt, or they're on the verge of getting their purple. And I've got a guy that way that he's kind of like me and been injured quite a bit. Dude, I love it when he's on the mat. He gets on the mat, helps me with the kids, keeps them track, and he does the same thing with the adults. He'll walk around and kind of give some of the white belts pointers, this, that, and the other. But he's on the mat, so mentally it helps him get through that hump of being injured.
Yeah, that's good. You can actually accomplish a lot that way. And again, like going back to what I was looking to accomplish this week, I wanted to get that pass down a little bit, And so, like, if you view the world as such a binary, kind of set of outcomes, like I can either never get good at this, or I can go do what I can tonight. And, by the way, I ended up watching some really wild rounds. I mean, Trey was there. Trey was rolling super hard, I mean, like I hadn't seen him in a long time. Picked up some new visual techniques. I watched JP go at it. I mean, dude, I got a lot out of that,
Oh, yeah.
When else am I going to do it? It's not the same when I'm looking up.
No, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yes. So that's what that looks like.
Yeah. Oh, so that's what he was doing. Yeah, exactly. Let's talk a little bit about the big promotion, because you were one of the first, man. I mean, like we had a lot of podium promotions and whatnot, but in terms of like we talked about the next generation of your blue belts that are coming up. I mean, Double Five's been open for a couple years, and so you were part of generation 1 of the cycle of brown to blacks.
Oh yeah. So we had in.
I mean, you're a brown belt with your own school. Under Formiga, putting in the time up in at his school. Did you know this is coming?
No, I didn't. And the crazy thing is I had this thought process of, man, it was my first belt promotion at my school underneath Formiga. I'm like, man, how great would it be if I had Formiga come down on my belt promotion night? So I talked to Formiga. He's like, yeah, I'll be there. Mm-hmm. Cool. So we worked out the schedule and we had him there. So I'm going through. I had some friends show up. I'm like, I really didn't expect you to be here. Why are you here? I'm like, I get it. I love the fact, because I had advertised belt promotion. So I had some buddies to come support the gym. I'm thinking, man, this is really cool. These guys are here to support me, giving these, awarding a few belts. I only had like 2 belts to hand out for my kids. And I had a bunch of stripes to hand out.
Any adult belts?
No, I didn't hand out any adult belts. Okay. It was just kids. That's all I had belts, but there was quite a few stripes that went out because I had a lot of white belts.
Okay.
And so,
do you do adult stripes?
I do for white.
Okay.
I do.
Cool.
I try to follow Formiga. Formiga does the white.
Does he? Okay.
I think he does the white for the stripes, but he doesn't do stripes on blue and up. The crazy thing is I recently found this out. Formiga's never had a stripe on a belt until he got his black belt.
Oh, really?
So white through brown, he was just white through brown. There was no stripes. As I said, there's so many people put so much emphasis in things on stripes. And at the end of the day, really, do they mean a lot?
I don't know. I don't know if I have a real opinion on it. I've had stripes. I've not had stripes.
No, I'm kind of the same way.
I've taken stripes off.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have.
I mean,
because I think the first time you come in and we met, I think you had some.
I had some stripes.
You had some stripes.
I'm like, these are gone.
I know some guys that have done that before.
I'm lucky. You guys are lucky. I even put that purple belt back on.
I watched a guy literally. He show up to class. He did purple, but he was a purple belt. He'd come back the next class with a blue belt. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? You earned that belt. He's like, no, not in this room.
I got tuned up anyway.
But yeah,
you're black belt.
Yeah, so rabbit hole. But yeah, so he comes down and I had a great showing. I think we had like 75 people show up, counting kids, 80 people show up, kids. I was stoked with it. It was our first belt promotion, and I get through doing my big spiel and everything, and I was like, "Hey, Formiga, you got anything you want to say?" He's like, "Actually, yeah." I mean, he kind of starts talking about me, and I'm like, "Wait a second, what's?" And all of a sudden, he had it in his jacket. He pulls it out. I'm like, bro, are you kidding me? I just start crying.
Oh, I would be a baby.
Like, I just started crying, man, because it was like, holy cow. It's like, it was
10 years.
Yeah. Because, 10 years. And I had, it was a little bittersweet because there was part of me that wanted to get I wanted to be with the people I train with.
Sure.
But the symbolism and the connection that happened that night with me and my students, them physically seeing me get, and having my family there and having everybody there to support me was pretty freaking fantastic.
Dude, I can only imagine.
It was pretty fantastic. Like I wasn't prepared. I didn't, of course you're supposed to give a black belt speech. So I kind of said a couple of things, and kind of talked, but man, to know that I got my black belt from Miga, and which has always been, it's been the goal for the last, I've known Miga now 5 years, 6 years. I think we're pushing 6 years together. Yeah. Since I was a blue belt, because he was there when I got my purple. 6 years. So to have him be there and hand me that belt was just one of the most humbling moments in so many ways, to have somebody like, and listen, Formiga is one of those dudes. He is as good he is on the mat as he is off the mat. Yeah. Like we have text messages where like I'm checking on my coach and he's checking on me, and we have conversations, and he has been there through a lot of stuff with me on the personal aspect of it. That again, he's another one of those guys that I don't know where I'd be without him per se. Like he's just a good dude. Him and Elisa both. I mean, they've got a vibe going up here that's. There's parts of it that I want to mimic, and there's parts of it that I want to make my own. Create my own thing. But I take a lot of what he does and what he's given me, and I want to hand it down. That's the goal, right?
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. I think if you're carrying his flag. I mean, you're carrying Dedeco's flag, you're carrying De La Riva himself's flag, you're carrying, all the way up the lineage. Yeah. And I mean, Formiga's talked about that before as well. Like all he did, I mean, we give him a lot of credit for this. He goes, all I did is I just copied what I saw Dedeco and Alexi do. Like they were the nicest guys in the world. They made me feel welcome. They made me feel like I had a home. They trained me hard. They pushed me hard. And, they're good humans on and off the mat. And if you're a 5-5 affiliate, man, I don't know how you could do it any other way. You know what I'm saying? Because they just, I mean, Formiga and Elisa are living examples, that we see that set that standard. I think you were the first, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but your belt promotion was the first Falcon BJJ belt promotion, right? I mean, the black belt to the owner is basically the first one in the building.
Yeah,
if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, ultimately, okay, for the adult side, yeah.
I don't know if you were even there. You might not have been there that day, but Formiga made an announcement about it, and he said that. And,
no, I didn't.
And it was pretty cool. So one day you show back up and you got the black belt on. I remember it. I think, and you're like sitting. I mean, dude, you got to give everybody a hug. I remember seeing you, dude. I told you how proud I was of you, dude. I was like, I just couldn't believe it, because I've watched you. Like again, I'm not, blowing sunshine around here, man. Like when I saw like what you were doing, I'm like, dude, it set another tone for me too. I'm like, oh, okay. So this is, people do this, like, you know what I mean? Like, and so. But again, now you get the black belt on. It's Monday. It's noon. Here we go. What's that like?
Here it goes, right? It's like break it in.
Who are your first rolls?
Man,
probably Rodrigo.
No, actually, yeah.
No? He wasn't there?
No, he was my first roll. I think Rodrigo was my first roll.
I don't know if that's a trend or not, but I started, I mean, now that we got all these black belts, I noticed a little bit of Formiga 6 Rodrigo on people.
Yeah. And he put Tunde on me that day, I think.
Oh, lucky
and
you.
Tristan on me that day. And I think I had Ian and Ryan.
Okay.
If I remember.
So it was a lovely Monday.
Oh, it was, yes. Wheelchair, handicap as I was leaving.
Heck yeah, man. Any one of those names.
Yeah.
Any one of those names.
Dude, Ryan saying, I've known him for 4 or 5 years now. And he's like, let's break it in. I'm like, bro, come on, man. I just got hammered. Don't do it again. He's like, oh, no, we're going.
That's awesome, man. When he turns it up, you're pretty much a passenger.
Yeah.
So Ian,
that's a whole different.
Yeah. Crazy.
Ian's such a weird role.
Ian?
Yeah.
Dude.
It's so methodical and
is it? All I feel like is I'm just
it's like I feel like he's moving slow motion.
I feel like I'm in a kid's class.
Yes.
It's in the kids club. I was telling Tristan about it. In fact, we talked about this on the podcast, but it's a funny story because Danny sent me this video once, and it's me and Ian sparring. And usually when I get these videos, I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay, cool. Like, oh, that back step wasn't as good as I thought it was. Correct that. Note to self. I'm watching myself. I'm like, you know how like when a white belt learns a scissor sweep and they stand up and their posture's all wrong? Like, dude, every one of those things. Yeah. I'm like, this is what it's like with this guy. Yeah. Oh, what's wrong with me, man? I turned into an idiot. One last question before we, kind of start closing things out here. But you're, and again, I'm putting emphasis on stuff that I said don't put emphasis on. But the reality is, you started when you're 34 years old, man. So the consequence of that is that you're peaking out and getting your black belt when you're 44 years old, I think. And, I mean, what's it like, man, having to, kind of like enter into that world at that stage? You've made it to the stage of being statistically unusual at this point, man. I mean, now here you are.
Yes, we are here. It's one of those things where I find myself, it's almost like I'm starting over again.
Really?
I mean, for me,
the journey and destination cliche that we had talked about earlier.
Yeah, no,
You're
it's
on
like,
the journey as opposed to reaching the point.
Yeah, there is no point.
I'm off.
Cool. I'm
awesome.
a strong believer.
I got my black belt.
Yeah, I'm a strong believer that there is no point in jiu-jitsu. There's no point of end.
Yeah.
There's
you see
only
it in
that.
IBJJFs. I mean, look, you're in the black belt division now. You got guys that are third, fourth degrees. I mean, like coral belts. I mean, like, dude, seriously.
Because I'm at that age that they've been training. They've been a black belt longer than I've been alive.
Right.
In some cases.
No, that's true.
I mean,
yeah. In fact, Ted's going up against a coral belt and.
Yeah.
At IBJ and Dallas.
Yeah.
It's weird, right?
It's
really it's just strange to say that out loud,
Yes.
I mean, so
it's one of those things I truly believe it's a start. It's almost a start over. And they say a black belt's just a white belt and never quit, which is a very true statement. But I almost feel like I'm a white belt again, because now it's like, okay, I did all this. I feel like I had these few things right. It's like I need to correct so much. There's so much in my jiu-jitsu that I feel is not right. So it's like I go back to the basics, and it's like, okay, let's start over. Here's a scissor sweep. Okay, how do I make this scissor sweep greatness? I mean, you look at Hadra Gracie. Very basic. Very basic jiu-jitsu done at a very high level. That is
very fundamental.
Beautiful to watch. I mean, it's people would say boring at some point, right? Because it's just basic.
You could, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's just kind of it's beautiful, the fact that it is a basic move done at a high level that very few people can actually stop.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not saying I'm ever going to be at that level, but I'm saying, and I won't. What I'm saying is I want to learn to teach it at that level. I want to be able to say, okay, your hand's like 2 inches a little too low, because I think once you get to a certain level, you're making those micro adjustments. And so being able to understand how to make those micro adjustments and being able to teach those adjustments is what's about being a black belt, right? You can show a move, but let's show the fine line that nobody's reading down here right now at white belt level. Like, there's so many things down there that nobody reads until they get to their brown and black belt that nobody's actually teaching. Yeah.
Like so you were saying earlier, chaining things together, having a plan B, plan C,
Yeah. So being able to make those adjustments and progress in that level. I mean, I would love to be able to at some point have an adult black belt train underneath me that wins the world. I mean, who wouldn't, right? Yeah. I mean, if I can keep my 9-year-old going the way he's going, I honestly believe that there is a high probability he could be one of those. Yeah. But again, it's about me being able to teach him. Yeah. And if I can't teach him at that level, then he's going to find somebody else. And he's going to be somebody else's adult black belt, Yeah. So, I mean.
Puts the pressure on you, puts the accountability on you, I guess, in order to stay current.
So it's just.
And improve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah, somebody that puts in, I mean, you've put into a decade of your life into this, and you've done it in a productive manner. You've done it consistently and whatnot. So imagine what you can do in 15. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Imagine what you can do in 20.
Yeah.
I mean, it gives a lot of hope to.
Hey, man, and I tell you what I'm excited about is the next 5, 10, 15, however long I can keep this up. Because ultimately, I have a son that trains.
Yeah.
And then I have, believe it or not, I'm actually a grandfather. So
we didn't cover that.
Yeah,
I meant to, and we didn't
got-
cover that.
my
I knew that was
grandson-
one of the first facts I knew about you.
My grandson turns 3 here next month. So
Oh man, congratulations to the
in
grandson.
April. So,
and
and
to
then
Micah.
I've got a granddaughter on the way.
Oh
So
my gosh.
potentially I'm looking at 3
Dude, we
generations.
should have covered that earlier on. I didn't know that.
But 3
we got so many little notes here.
Yeah, but 3 generations on the mat is what I'm looking at. Like,
dude, that's awesome.
So
what
when
an
I opened the
interesting-
gym, it wasn't necessarily about me.
Yeah.
It's about me being able to have a legacy to hand down that could possibly be a new generational cycle.
Yeah.
I feel like I've had so many bad cycles that I was like, I need a new cycle.
Yeah.
Like I need a cycle that is actually a positive thing to be able to hand down to my heirs. And so that was one thing. And having my wife on the mat and doing that journey with me now is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that
is awesome,
It
man.
is amazing. And there's not many guys that can say that.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
So
you are in a unique spot right there where some of those generational gaps could actually come true. I don't know many stories like that.
Well, no, yeah, because I was so young.
Yeah.
When I had my son, so my grandson will be 4 next year. So
Wow.
I actually start at 4 years. Most do 5, 6 years old, but I actually start at 4. I opened it up here a few months ago, and I'm having pretty good progress with it. But so in 4 months, in a year, I could have 3 generations on the same mat.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's awesome.
That's something. That's goals. That right there.
That's super
goals.
cool, man.
That's goals.
So I think we know what's next for you. Kind of really closing things out here. That guy that didn't want to roll with sweaty dudes, that suddenly, took the pill, couldn't get off of the drug, Do you think that version of yourself would believe you're at where you're at right now? Owning a school, wearing a black belt?
No. There's no way. Like at that point when I first started, being a blue belt probably wasn't even on the mind. It was literally 6 months of me getting my rear end handed to me, thinking, why am I doing this every day?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, there's an addiction to it. It's like, okay, I'm going to win this.
Yeah.
Like,
also feels like you're adding value. You're doing good things.
Yes. Yeah. No. And from the get go, it was like I've had some bad turns, some bad choices where I wasn't doing good things, but I think things evolve.
Yeah.
Things change, and people change.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
For sure.
I think they say your taste buds change every 7 years or something like that.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It's a weird fact that I think my wife has actually told me. That's her excuse for liking things she didn't like when we were married. When we were first married.
I gotcha.
But
An
as far as
evolution.
food, yeah, so
Natural evolution. It's biological, it sounds like.
Yeah, so I mean, to be able to look back and to see where I was, what I was, when I was, and to see where I could be, where I want to be, and where I might be, is a big thing.
Interesting. So close this out, man. How do we close this out? Closing thoughts on your side. You've got such an interesting journey. Like I said, you've been inspirational to me. I mean that genuinely. I mean, you've been a huge part of my training from the day I stepped. Probably the day that I stepped foot into Formiga's mats. You were a big part of it. Where do we leave folks?
Man, I think I go back to what I've kind of said the whole time is be cognizant of your environment. Be awake.
Be awake.
Be awake. See things the way they're meant to be seen. Understand the way they ultimately should be. And make sure that you are family first. Ultimately, if you're a believer, you're God first, family second, and everything else. So you need to be able to recognize those moments that maybe we fall asleep, and we're not awake, and things are happening around us, and we're hit that tunnel vision moment.
Mm-hmm.
Surround yourself with people that are willing to look at you and knock you across the head and say, "Hey, wake up. open your eyes again. I think that's the biggest thing is for me is just being able to be awake.
Interesting perspective. I like that, man. I can see that. And I could probably use a little bit of awakening myself, and I think everybody can. So that's really good advice. Well, you've heard it here. As I said in the beginning, and I guess closing out in kind of the same manner, don't put yourself in a corner that you don't need to be into. This is a long journey. You're not going to get off anywhere. There's not an off-ramp until you quit. Self-imposed limitations are going to do nothing other than create that off-ramp. Make sure you're awake. Make sure you take time to put the priorities in your life in the order that they need to be in. And with that, we are out.